Good evening. This meeting is now convened at 5:19 p.m. Board members present are Trustee Dygard, Trustee Sung, Trustee Lira, Trustee Skillern-Jones, myself. I'd like to ask everyone to please silence all cell phones. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and honors to the Texas flag. Cadet Nathaniel Shea will lead the Pledge of Allegiance and the honors to the Texas flag. Cadet Shea attends Heights High School, which is in District 1, but I will introduce the pledge leader on behalf of Trustee Santos. Has she called in? Okay. Okay. Cadet Nathaniel Shea is a junior at Heights High School and enters his third year in the JROTC program. He has distinguished himself throughout his high school years and is ranked in the top 10% of his class with a 4-point GPA. His total commitment to leadership and academic excellence is evidenced by his selection to the battalion commander position with oversight of over 160 cadets and is class treasurer for the 2021 graduating class. He is a member of the Boy Scouts and the Audio Visual Club, and he is a commander of the JROTC Marksmanship and Leadership academic teams. Cadet Shea is passionate about serving the community. He has over 100 community service hours. Upon graduation, he plans to attend Texas A&M University and major in mathematical studies.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you so much, Cadet Shea, and best of luck to you the rest of the school year. We've been joined by Trustee Davila. Thank you, Trustee. We recognize the month of November as American Heritage Month, and I'd like to ask Trustee Sung to read the proclamation.
Whereas the United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, is also a land of immigrants and a nation of diversity, and a country that enjoys the richness of many ethnicities, cultures, and faiths. And whereas Americans, while individually very different, unite in the common vision of freedom for all and the unalienable rights of every citizen to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas American heritage plays a fundamental role in the life of every child and student in the Houston Independent School District and is the foundation for a wealth of opportunities for future success to all who are willing to work for it. And whereas the Houston Independent School District, its teachers and staff are committed to preparing and nurturing our future leaders as they pursue excellence and work to achieve the American dream. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Education and the Superintendents of Schools, are proud to proclaim November 2019 to be American Heritage Month in HISD, with the theme of celebrating the expansion of the franchise, the 19th Amendment Centennial. And we encourage all to recognize the importance of patriotism and celebrate our freedom and the rich tradition of our American heritage, in witness thereof on this 14th day of November 2019.
Thank you, Trustee Sung. Next, we will have Trustee Villaseca, and I've asked Trustee Villaseca to read the proclamation for Veterans Day. But before I get started on that, do we have any veterans that are here today at our meeting? If you are, could you please rise, or anyone serving in the military? Thank you.
We thank you for your service and those who are serving. And I know I've asked Trustee Villaseca because her father served in the military. I'm not sure what branch. And
Air Force.
Air Force.
Thank
So,
you.
Trustee Villaseca.
Thank you so much. In November, we recognize November 11th as Veterans Day, and I'd like to ask, that's my ear part, thank you. Proclamation, here we go. Whereas members of the armed forces have played a vital role in America's security since the founding of our nation and deserve our deepest appreciation and respect. And whereas citizens have volunteered to serve in the armed forces in times of both war and peace, serving with honor under the most difficult circumstances, and whereas veterans have demonstrated their devotion to the American people and dedication to advancing freedom through their service in the armed forces via active duty, reserve, or National Guard, and whereas veterans have continued to serve the nation as civilians, volunteering their time and expertise to improve their communities as public servants, mentors, and community leaders. And whereas the Houston Independent School District applauds its many employees and former students who have faithfully and loyally served our country in the armed forces, now, therefore, the Houston Independent School District and the Board of Education recognize November 11th, 2019 as Veterans Day. And although this date has passed, we urge all Houstonians to pay tribute to and show their appreciation of our military personnel and their efforts to secure peace and freedom around the world, and witness thereof on this 14th day of November 2019.
Thank you, Trustee Villaseca.
Thank you.
You proved that you were a teacher because you can keep going, even with the phone ringing. Next, I would like to ask Retha Thomas to please step forward at this time for our final recognition.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank the school board for recognizing the support personnel for the last 16 years. And oftentimes our support personnel, they go unnoticed. But I think that I want to thank Roy Page for bringing this recognition for the support personnel. But I'm sad to say this year that some of the people that we nominated, they declined behind foolishness. And this year, every year we go out and we celebrate with CFS and transportation. They have a big meal. It's something that we put in the policy that have a big meal, and the supervisors serve the employees. But it's sad to say that I was told in consultation yesterday, Tuesday, that HESP and the other union organization, we are not welcome to break bread with them. And that really bothers me because it really bothers me for Chief Busby told me that we are not welcome to come to the luncheon. And we've been doing this for the last 16 years. And all the past administration and all the past superintendent always pushed it. And we had people like Anna Eastman. They would go out there sometime and help serve the food to our bus drivers and to our custodians. But I just want to make that point this year that we're not welcome. And if you get that kind of language from somebody saying that you're not welcome to come to a program that you had implemented 16 years ago and it's been very effective for all these many years.
We've been joined by Trustee Adams.
I'm going to call employees up here, and I just only have about 4 because all these was told to decline. Because all of them work up on the CFS and food service. So, but we do have Miss Now I'm going to ask Mr. Vera Ramirez. Ms. Ramirez, she works in the HR payroll, and we have to present this a token of appreciation on all the hard work you do, and it's not going unnoticed. I want to know our support personnel all know that your work is not going unnoticed. You know, even though some people try to keep it unnoticed, but we are the backbone of HISD. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Retha, for this recognition. I really appreciate it. I have been here with the district for 13 years and in the same position in payroll. And I love my job. Thank you so much.
Where's the picture? Mr. Hosea Lunas, would you come on and take us? Mr. Lunas has worked 20 years at HISD and the food service department. And she's going to be receiving this platform. You want to say something? Then we have Ms. Juanita Martinez. Ms. Juanita, on behalf of the on behalf, we want to show you how much we appreciate you as again. I don't know what to say. I don't know if I should say on behalf of HISD, or should I be on behalf of the school board, or should I say on behalf of the superintendent? Because regardless of who I say is on behalf, it's always controversial back to me. So on behalf of you working so hard in the cafeteria and getting half paid, we want to give you a recognition. You want to say something?
Yes, thank you. I love my job.
That's later. She said she loved her job.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Robert Henson. Whoa. Mr. Henson been here for HID for 42 years, and no one never recognized him. Nobody never recognized him. That's why it's so important, folks. That's why it's so important. Don't give up. Mr. Henson is the one that works on HID school buses. He the one to make sure the brakes are solid. And on behalf of the district, I'd like to present you this appreciation. I know it's been 42 years and nobody never recognized you, but that's the way it is. Can I get an amen? Okay. You want to say something?
Yes. I would like to say thank you very much for this acknowledgement. I'm a native Houstonian. I graduated from Blackshear Elementary, Ryan Middle, and Evan E. Worthing High School. And after my education in Houston within the school district, I tried to return the favor by coming back to work for the district. So HISD has been a big part of my life, my entire life. And I'm still working today. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be recognized for all the hard work. Thank you.
I'm going to give these back to you, Janice. those people that couldn't come, because they were told they couldn't come to this board meeting. I want to just say this here. Give me 1 minute. You know, for years, I felt like that the unions was like a mediator between the administration and the board members. And in the past, we've been able to get stuff done, and then still, we fuss and fight, but when we leave out of the room, we're all on the same page, because all is about our children. It's about our children. Somewhere down the line, we have lost focus. We have lost focus on what it means to be administrator, board member, superintendent, cafeteria workers, custodians. We all had a meeting. I've been doing this for almost 38 years, and I have seen a lot stuff happen in HID, but I've never seen a big mess like we in now. So I'm just saying that we can agree and disagree, but until everybody get on the same page and stop using these race cards, you know, I get accused of being friends with the Mexicans, and then I get friends being working with the blacks. I have been accused of everything, and like I said, my only concern is representing ATSP members, those bus drivers, make sure that they get those kids to school on time, food service, get to have the food prepared for the kids, our custodians, and to keep the school clean. That's my concern. The rest of it, I want y'all to leave ATSP out of it, because it will fall down. It's going to be all about me representing my members, and our members doing their job as support personnel are designed to do. We are here to support our teachers, and that's the way it is. It's just not the way it is. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rita. And thank you to those who attended today to be recognized. And Rita, please thank all the other members and your bus drivers, your custodial and food service staff. I'm sure I do not speak alone when I say this, but the board, Houston ISD board today appreciates everything they do every single day for our children, and that includes mine. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane.
Next, we will move now forward to the presentation by our next board, Dr. McMahon, and Miss Elliott, would you please come to the podium? Thank you. And those of you all who have followed or who may be new, Miss Elliott is one of our HISD board coaches.
Yes. Good evening. Good evening, Superintendent Lathan and trustees. This evening, we want to take the time to actually review your quarterly tracker and your overall evaluation. So, if you will, what I would like to do is something maybe a little different, but I've done this with other boards and it seems to go pretty well. I would like to divide the framework up among you and basically assign certain board members, and then let's have a conversation about it. I think it's important that you really look into the framework, analyze it, examine it, and then let's talk a little bit about it. So that you can first understand where you are, and then let's talk about why you are there, okay? If we will, Vision 1, Trustee Dygard, Trustee Adams, would you guys work on Vision 1? Vision 2, Trustee Villaseca and Trustee Davila, if you work on Vision 2. Vision 3, I'm actually going to ask all three of you, all right, since you're kind of down here together, Trustee Song, Lyra, and Trustee Skiller-Jones, please work on Vision 3. Then let's go back to Vision 4. We'll be over here with Trustee Dygard and Trustee Adams. So you've got 1 and you've got 4, okay? Accountability 1, okay? Accountability 2. Trustee Jones, Lyra, and Sung, okay? Structure, Trustee Dygard and Trustee Adams. Advocacy, and last is unity. What I'd like for you to do is go through, and you have basically the integrity instrument, the board quarterly tracker, and the annual progress tracker, okay? I would like for you to go through, you should have it in your packets, examine each section that's been assigned to you and determine where you believe this board falls within the framework. Also, I want you to be thinking of why you believe this board falls at this particular point in the framework. We have your tracker. You should have the tracker as well. I don't know if you can read it. It just came out small. But nevertheless, this has all of the evidence within it. And it goes quarter by quarter by quarter by quarter. So it should tell you the evidence as well as, Marcia tried to make it bigger, it just didn't come out. So if you cannot read it, there are other, there's information in front of you as well, okay? Within your tracker that's provided for you. All right? So I would like for you just to take a few minutes and examine those that are assigned to you, and then let's come back and talk about it.
Madam Chair, if we could ask our board counsel to just give us guidance about how we properly review this and then have this conversation in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Thank you. I'll remind the board you are in a properly called public meeting, so your discussion needs to be public. So I don't know how that's going to work with these dividing up, but you're in a public meeting, so your discussion about the items needs to be part of that public meeting.
Maybe review silently to yourself, and then as we take each one, those that are assigned will actually come forth and talk and comment on it, okay? Let's take just a few minutes. This will also help us with time because we've divided it up and it gives you a little bit more, it will expedite the process a little bit. All right, if you will take a few minutes to look at those areas that you've been assigned. I'll probably give you about 5 to 7 minutes. Does that work? We're now at 6 minutes. Anyone need longer than 7? I did, as it's 5 to 7, so we're now at almost 7. Do you need extra? Okay. We've got 30 seconds. Okay, we're at 7 minutes. Is everyone ready? Okay, good. The purpose of reviewing this framework is for the board to see where the board stands within the framework. and for the community to also hear you review and hear your comments. For the community also to begin understanding Lone Star governance and also the different components of Lone Star governance. If we're looking at Vision 1, the board works collaboratively with the superintendent to develop the vision and student outcome goals. Vision 1. Ladies? Trustees?
So what are you looking for in a response? I mean, I've got questions.
That's good.
Okay.
Okay. It does not meet focus. Where did you stand as does not meet focus?
So on Vision 1, before I answer that, I just have some questions.
All right.
Right? Because I think that's valuable in working through this process.
It is.
Right? So, I think we are further along on this. This is probably accurate, but I have some questions. So under preparing to focus, the board owned the vision development process by working collaboratively with the superintendent. I mean, the vision is online, was created by a previous board and superintendent team. We're about to go through another transition of a board. I would argue that a district's vision, if it is reflective of the community, if we've mastered focus, if it's reflective of the community, doesn't change every time there are new board members or a new superintendent.
That is correct.
So I just wanted to make that clarification. Under meets focus, currently we have been stating that we are at 12 for meets focus. The board relied on a root cause analysis, comprehensive student needs assessment, and or similar research-based tool to inform identification of and prioritization of potential student outcome goals. I've always struggled with this one because I haven't seen the root cause analyses, right? So then it becomes, where are they, how is that shared with the board, especially if a new board member is coming in and, this is where we are in this rubric and this framework, to understand this is how, again, I'm looking a couple years forward based on experience over the past couple of years. So the question becomes, how do you make sure that future boards understand why we have the goals that we have and that root cause analysis is visible to the public to understand why the board has the goals that they have that they're doing the work behind.
It's highly important.
Okay. And then my third question of clarity around this. So, our goal for the next quarter that's on this document is to get to 15 with master's focus. And there is a adjective in this first statement of a broad community ownership of the board's vision and student outcome goals. And how do we define broad community ownership? So the question I would have is how many students, families, teachers, and community members are coming to these community meetings? Is there data being kept on the different people, to make sure that they are representative geographically, socioeconomically, racially, making sure there are students and families and teachers and community members that are actually showing up and engaging in this process before we can actually say we have broad community ownership?
We do keep record of everyone that comes.
So how do we define broad community ownership?
Community engagement, we are opening the doors to the entire community. But also to really do master's focus, for them to accept whatever, we're getting input from them right now. So we will come back to the board and say, this is what your people have said. This is what they believe. This is what they want. Once you have gone through the process and you have set preliminary goals collaboratively with your superintendent using a needs assessment and a root cause analysis, then you will go back to your people and say, here, This is what we believe is the most important. So there's that continual communication. It is not something, it's a one-time thing where we actually go out and say, oh, can you give us a few student outcomes, and we're going to go back and take this to the board. One of the things that I stress in my sessions, and I'm sure Marcia does as well, is that this is ongoing communication with the community. It is not just a one-time thing. It is ongoing, and it is ongoing with the board. So for them to have a broad acceptance, that means that you're going to have to not only get their input now, but you're going to have to go back to them before you even adopt.
Okay. But I guess where I'm going with this is, given the few numbers of people that is my understanding that are coming to these meetings in a district that has a vast, we're vast geographically, 200 plus thousand students, even if we say every child only has one family member, that's still 200,000 families, not including, how many teachers do we have? 20,000 teachers? 13,000 teachers, 30,000 employees. How are we ensuring that these community meetings are being done in a way that we are confident that families and employees and teachers and community members know about them and are participating in them, so we can have confidence that we have broad, every parent's not going to come, every employee is not going to come, but how are we ensuring, and will we be reflective when we have this data from you when it's done, because there's still meetings to be had, that we're looking at the total and we're looking at the data on the diversity, to make sure that we have an equitable representation that's reflective of the population in our district, giving the board input as we're setting the goals for their children that they serve and that they love.
Well, I think the only way that we can do is to basically do it within the areas that have been assigned, which hopefully that will give us a pretty good picture of your entire community, meaning your feeder patterns, there's certain areas, that making sure that we cover all areas. I do believe all areas need to definitely be covered, and if there's an extra area or another part of the city that the board feels like definitely we need a meeting in that area, then we're quite open to that, because getting as much community input as possible is first and foremost with us.
Or even maybe it's not geographical, but just demographic. That we find that are refugee families or EL families or whatever, weren't coming to these meetings, and making sure that we're doing outreach if they didn't come to these, to not presume that they're not interested.
Exactly, and sometimes certain populations just do not feel comfortable. I know even at high school, when I was principal, I had certain populations didn't feel comfortable to come on campus. I had to go to them. So I do think if we see that we are not getting certain populations for whatever reason, then we just need to make an attempt to go to them in some way, shape, or form. I've even talked with some of your citizens at these meetings, and they have mentioned, well, our church is in that area. I said, well, maybe we need to do a community input meeting at your church. She said, I could get you a lot of people coming to the church. So I'm actually in communication with her, and possibly we'll bring that back to the board as a suggestion. So I think we need to do as much as we can to increase the communication between the school district and the people. When you get the information from these community meetings, you're actually going to be doing a gallery walk, and you will see in their handwriting exactly what they think, what they feel about student outcomes. And one of the things in Vision 1 that you are evaluating, this is the goal-setting piece. This is where you establish the vision of the people, and then you set goals in regard to that. And I want the community members who are here tonight to know that this vision and these goals are student outcome goals. They are totally focused on students. and that this board is taking that focus back to students, which is exciting.
I just want to make sure that we're not just saying because we had some meetings and some people came that we feel that we have broad community engagement on this and that we need to be reflective on
I think possibly we need to do a few more meetings. I know the students have asked me are you going to have in fact the other day, one of them is, are you going to have a student meeting, Ms. Elliott? I said, well, that is a consideration. I have no problem with doing that.
That might be something Student Congress would want to do.
And I've even had administrators ask me, are you going to do an administrative community input or an input from administrators and principals and teachers, okay? So I've already told them if it pleases the board and we take it back to the board, we are fine with that. The more input we get, like I said, from all areas, the better. And so we will continue to do these meetings. I think a very powerful piece, though, is once you have written preliminary goals, and you feel pretty good about them, you have looked at the community input, you have looked at your data, your needs assessment. What's very powerful is to go back to your community and then let them actually see the preliminary goals at that point. Then you're going to have broad acceptance and you're going to have some valuable input.
So to see them before we adopt them? Okay.
Yes. Anything else? So where do you think you are? I know we look at numbers, all right, just to kind of give us a gauge, but where do you think you are in the scheme of things?
I'm going on trust that we're at 12 and that the root cause analysis was done when these goals were created before I was on the board, but I've never seen it. And so it always makes me a little uncomfortable when I'm saying we're at 12 as opposed to 4.
Yeah, and since none of us were here, I was not here either, so we are making that assumption. We've been told it was. So we rest on faith in that, but know that as you continue this journey and you begin to actually look at your student outcome goals, you revisit them and actually rewrite some of them, especially with HB3, the root cause analysis will be in place. Your master's focus piece will come into play once we get the community piece in place. That's a huge, powerful piece. As you can see throughout this entire framework, you can never really you can't meet masters, so to speak, can't get to masters unless you bring your people in. Let's go on to Vision 2. So we're going to say that Vision 1 we have is a 12. Tell me, Trustee Adams, do you agree with that? Good evening.
I'm sorry, not 2012. When you look at the framework and the visions on where we started in 2017, and before that time, we didn't have a vision. It was outdated for like 11 years. And before then, we didn't have any goals, but we knew that there was problems. We knew what the root of the problems was because we didn't have anything to guide the board, and that's been like that way before I got here. And so in 2017 is when the first vision and the first goals were established because there wasn't any. And as president at that time, I recognized that our visions were old, that we were still operating on outdated vision, and we definitely didn't have any measures or goals or SMART goals at that particular time. So that led us to where we are right now. And I believe at the very beginning that the board members at that time, we did a lot of hard work to even establish the goals and to create a vision to give us something to operate out of when it was like maybe 10 pages long, and we was able to narrow it down to almost like a sheet to be able to get an understanding so the community can understand exactly what we were doing as a board then. And so right now, I can probably agree to disagree, especially on Vision 1. The board works collaboratively with the superintendent to develop a vision for student outcomes and goals. If I'm being honest, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay. if the board works collaboratively with the superintendent to develop vision and student outcomes and goals based on the MEETS focus is where we were at the beginning to get to 12 where we are right now. But if we would have to start all over and do all this today, in order to get to where we are, that means we have to be able to have a relationship with each other to get there. And we're not there right now. So these were established when we did have a relationship with the superintendent at that time, and then when the board did work collaboratively to get where we are at this moment. So in order for us to move forward for 2020, there must be, it has to be, because we cannot move forward just with a small team. It has to be everyone working together to get to that desired goal. And so right now, based on where we've come from, if we go back to a year or 2 years ago, I would say yes. But right now, I probably have to say we're not meeting the mark because there isn't any communication or collaboration with the superintendent on student outcomes and goals because there's no communication. So I'm just have to be honest on that one since we're in the public. And then with what we need to be with community input and engagement, based on, and I agree with my colleague, based on the meetings that I attended, there wasn't any, maybe, I'm not going to say there was no one there, because if we had one citizen to show up, that means that was one citizen that cared. I think at one meeting we had one person there, and I think that was Dr. Boberlin at one meeting, and then at another meeting I attended, we probably had, I think it was three parents that showed, it was three parents that showed up. That means that we had three parents that cared, and there was three parents that gave their input. So somebody cared. But now how do we get everyone else engaged to be able to care about our student goals, our outcomes, so they can give the input that's necessary for us to reach the vision and the goals on which we have described right here. That means, do I need to do my part as a trustee to be able to say, hey, I really need you to come to the meetings? Do we do enough? Or is it because damage has been done and people feel like, what with my input value at this time? So until they're able to gain the trust back into what we're trying to do, I think you're going to continue to see what you saw. Just maybe one parent that was showing up. At the first meeting, there were no parents. We had a community member. And at the second meeting I attended, there were three parents. I don't know about the other community meetings, but we have to do something better to be able to get to that point concerning our students' outcomes and our goals so we can engage our community. But the question is, how do we do that? So when we do have our meetings for the parents, do we need to do them during the day? In the morning for breakfast? I asked for a survey. I don't think we do them in the morning and we do them. I asked for a survey, but the survey wasn't done. And I asked for a survey because with that survey, we could have captured a lot of our parents who were at work during the day, a lot of our parents who probably would have responded, because when we did the superintendent search and we did other surveys, there was a high response when they was able to go on the website, and I asked for that because I knew we weren't going to have any participation, but the survey wasn't done. So did we do enough? No, because we didn't do the survey, because I believe the survey would have filled in the gaps on what we were missing. And so that concludes
it's still not too late to do something.
Well, I'm just saying, at that point before we got here.
And then too, I've just said earlier, there might be a need to go to them, instead of them coming to school.
I mean, that always works with how, because you have to realize, and we're working with parents, now, elementary parents, they're different. You can get them to come to Muffins and Moms, Donuts and Dads. I mean, they just come early in the morning. We don't have an issue with that. And then the other thing is the majority of the parents are really engaged because our district has grown. When you look at the very ethnicities across the district, we have to be able to cater to every population so they can understand what we're asking. And I don't think we did enough of that. So when we look at what do we need to do, I think we need to do our part as an administration and as the board to do as many creative ideas to be able to get those parents engaged and get them to voice their concerns. Now I'm going to ask again, because I know I sent it in an email and I talked to you about it, I'm asking again so we can get those we can get the inputs from those parents is by the survey. So they can go online and enter online and ask and provide their comments of the outcomes with a couple of questions of explanation, so we can get an actual sample, get a survey. Because this right here with the number, I don't know how many numbers, and I thought you would come and tell us actually how many people actually showed up. So were we able to get an actual analysis just from those persons that actually showed up, compared to how many actual parents that we do have that represents children that are in this district? So
I can get you a report on that.
So I thought that's what we were doing tonight. So
I'm sorry, no, this is just self-evaluation tonight.
So,
but I can get you a report on that.
Okay.
I will say, I believe, I'm seeing at least with my groups, that they're growing. I'm getting more and more people coming.
Okay.
But I do think, as you said, the survey would be a good idea. We just have to formulate that.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I think truly, as one of your citizens said, come to us. And I know we're quite willing to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we'll get a good response that way.
Yeah. So that's just where I stand when we talk about the different frameworks and the vision. We, meaning I, myself, and those of us who needs to take accountability or responsibility for what my part is in it, then that's the only way that we're going to have some type of collaboration and communication with everyone. But it can't happen when there's no communication. There's no way it's going to happen if we don't have communication among the team.
Yeah. Communication is the work of relationship.
Right. And
we are all in a relationship.
Right. And that includes the leadership and the trust of the superintendent that we have in place in order to be able to have a complete vision. Because you can't have a complete vision without the input of the superintendent and every board member.
Well, let's just say with this evaluation, it happened a few years ago,
Yeah,
and you're saying at that time there was collaboration.
It was collaboration.
Right, and now you're about to embark on this journey again. All right. So right now you are at 12. If the lack of communication and the total breakdown happens when we begin to embark on this journey again, then we may actually move back in this framework.
Hopefully not. Hopefully we can just start
I do not want to see anyone move back.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. So hopefully we can all move forward and understand communication and how important it is to collaboration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we go down this path of a survey, my curiosity would be if the study that U of H is doing for us, if that might not serve this purpose, and that there might be data in that this board could use
we can certainly look
be
into
part of. That might be a contributor to broad community engagement in this process, is to use that. Whatever data might be relevant.
And in compiling that survey, or even if we're using University of Houston, it will not just be our eyes that look at that. The entire board will see it before anything is sent out, so that you can have input from that. But we can check with the University of Houston. That's a very good idea. Okay. All right, so we're going to say at the moment that you are at 12. 15, if we continue with the community and really get community input. Eventually, you have to get community buy-in. So in other words, they have to have a broad enough understanding to where they feel comfortable with what you have created. Yes.
So we're doing community engagement on this. Then we're going to go back and maybe keep some of these goals and constraint. Well, we're talking about goals here. Maybe keep some of the goals, maybe refine some of the goals, maybe create some new goals. So theoretically, we start this process over again where we're back at 1, 4, and 12. Until, as we've gone through that process, that then the community says, yes, this is reflective of the input that we gave you. Am I correct? Am I understanding of that?
Yeah, well,
that we don't jump from 12 to 15 on community
just because
support,
we have community input, right.
Unless it's community support for the goals that we've already written.
Right, but that's not where we're going right now.
Yeah, so
We're getting
ostensibly,
information
we're starting back at, well,
You
not
really
at
are
zero.
yeah.
We're not back at zero, but
No, you're not at zero because you definitely know what inputs, outputs, and outcomes are.
yeah, but we are starting this process over again and have to move through this, although we can move through it and get to 15 much
Very
quicker
quickly.
than we did last.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
And as a board, you already are owning this development process with the superintendent. And you definitely have SMART goals right now with a baseline, target, deadline, population. So you have the components in place. So you're not going to move backwards within the framework just because you're reevaluating your goals. Because every board will come to a point in time where they have reached their goals and they need to reevaluate to establish more goals for the future. So you would not move back to zero because you have already done all this work. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so we are at 12 at this point on Vision 1. Let's look at Vision 2.
And before we get started, I'm going to be the timekeeper because that took 20 minutes. And if we all are going to do this, that's going to be 60 minutes for round 1, and then another 60 minutes for round 2, and another 60 minutes for round 3.
Let's do it.
I'm like, 5 minutes between each little group at a max. That's it. I mean, if you can get it done in less than 5 minutes, even better. But that includes the dialogue between us and you. And I think if we want to do deeper dives, I think there's some trustees that may want to do deeper
We can
dives.
do that personally.
That's right. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
go
All
for
right.
it.
So we can get started with ours.
Okay, Vision 2. For those in the audience that don't have the Lone Star Governance tool in front of you, it's the board has adopted goal progress measures aligned to each student outcome goal. And right now we are at Meets Focus 12 points. And basically, we've met all of the 3 criteria that's listed here in the rubric, and I will read them out loud. The GPMs are all student outputs or student outcomes as distinct from adult inputs, adult outputs, and student inputs. GPMs or goal progress measures are most commonly student outputs, and all board members and the superintendent agree that the GPMs are all SMART. And the third criteria is all board members and the superintendent agree that the GPMs are all predictive of their respective student outcome goals and are influenceable by the superintendent. Predictive suggests that there is some evidence of a correlation between the progress measure and the goal. Influenceable suggests that the superintendent has authority over roughly 80% of whatever the progress measure is measuring.
Yes. So we are looking at 12 points. Trustee Davila.
So again, I think our deficiency here is not doing the engagements with the students and the families. Otherwise, we'd be at 15, which is, I don't want to continue on tagging on about like the community input and everything else. But I think our timing was a little off. I'm going to be honest. I kept telling my trustees, Astros playoff is going on, and I think people were a little more interested in finding out if we were going to make the World Series or not. But I just don't think there's parents. I don't think it's parents don't care. I just think sometimes timing. I remember when we did the superintendent search, we didn't have very many people come out to that either, and we tried to hold as many as we could. But I also remember Trustee Sung, and I think, I don't know if it was you or Marcia that sent out an email saying we will engage smaller groups if you have smaller groups that need engagements also. Mm-hmm. So there is that opportunity, trustees, to organize smaller groups as there was when we did the superintendent search. If you know of a smaller group, a church group, or anybody that would like to meet with Marcia or Miss, I'm sure you welcome that. But I think that seems to be our Achilles heels at this point is
throughout.
Is that.
You're right.
Throughout the whole, we don't master that for the most part because of that.
Exactly.
And we know that, and so that's the reason we hired you guys to help us get to that point.
Well, you're getting there. That's good. So we're at 12 points right now. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go on to Vision 3. Oh, that was 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Vision 3?
So I had 3. I had us at 3. What did you guys have?
We have a 3 also.
We were in agreement that we were at Approaches Focus 3. So we have, we've adopted constraints in line with our vision. But what we have not yet done is, separate from constraints in the superintendent's authority, we haven't adopted 3 to 5 self-constraints. We have adopted 1, but we haven't adopted 3 to 5. And nor have we engaged the community in the development of the constraints.
Okay, the 3 of you are in agreement of 3. Okay.
And I'll just add on the community meetings, you know, this is, these are the board's community meetings, right? Like, we're supposed to lead in this process, so it's not the job of the superintendent to run the meetings. It's not the job of the administration to run the meetings. And we've engaged Next Board, right, to help us facilitate these meetings. But ultimately, these are the board's meetings. So I really want to encourage all of us. Like, I mentioned this at our last meeting in October. And I think Marcia and Lori put this in the email to us, right? They're ready to come to other community meetings that we'll organize, right? So I have reached out to a few groups, some student groups, some teacher groups who are going to host meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I encourage everybody to do that. I think we all have different relationships in the community, so like if we all go out there and help organize these meetings, then we're going to touch more people.
And I do thank the trustees, all of you that have attended and supported, and actually you've been quite supportive within those meetings. So we're going to look at 3. Also, the theory of action comes at the master's focus, and that is something that will eventually come as well. Let's go to Vision 4. Okay, over here, Trustee Adams and Dygard, did you have Vision 4?
So Vision 4, the board has adopted constraint progress measures aligned to each constraint. We currently say we are 4 meets focus, and that, again, it's, as with all of these other ones, mastering focus would mean there was broad community ownership of the board's constraint progress measures. Again, a question about whether or not we've met focus. The superintendent doesn't vote on these, so, I think I've always had a question of how do we know that the board members and superintendent agree that they're predictive, other than the administration is creating the constraints and the constraint progress measures. So and
they belong to the
administration. Correct. Mm-hmm. And therefore, there's trust in this not reading this right. Predictive suggests that there's some evidence of a correlation between the progress measures. So they're, when the administration is creating these constraints and these constraint progress measures, they're bringing these to us. It's not the board. Mm-hmm. But when we're creating them, I think we probably need to make sure that we actually do look for that evidence. Just like on the other one, what is the root cause analysis? Correct?
Right. The constraints that will be brought to you, the constraint progress measures, will need to be predictive of the constraint, mm-hmm. and that the superintendent have control and influence over mm-hmm. those constraint progress measures. They belong to the superintendent, just as the goal progress measures do. Without alignment, you're not going to go anywhere with anything.
Yeah. But also the evidence of a correlation between the progress measure and the constraint.
Right, exactly. All of this needs to have evidence-based.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Adams.
I can only go back when these were created, and at that particular time, there was communication between the superintendent at that time and the board that was present at that moment. Now, for us to move forward, we have to give the ownership to the superintendent to provide us the information and accept what the superintendent says that her CPMs what her CPMs would be. And that will be our responsibility and not the other way around. Because I think we have to always know where that authority lies when it comes to that, and respect where that is, so we can, because they know exactly what their constraints need to be. Once we give ours, they know exactly what theirs needs to be and how they're going to meet them. And because, and so until then we can understand and support what that is, and and accept it, and make sure that they're monitored, at that appropriate time when they give us at what particular time are they going to complete this. And then I think what we can do now is to go back the ones that we have listed and see which ones we've actually completed, and then those that we're close to completing, so we can wean those out and say we've achieved those, we've mastered those, and now we'll be able to get with the superintendent and then go back out to the community so we can take it that next step further based on what the superintendent tells us and what we have with the community, so it can all align. But we have to trust the leadership on their constraints, because they need to be the superintendent constraints and not ours. And so at that particular time, I think once we get all that together, then I believe that it'll all line up together.
And we will be doing all of that when we start the revisitation.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and then the workshop that you mentioned in your summary is that once we come together, we have to be in a position to say who has the majority of the authority on the constraints. And once we've accepted that as a board, then we can give our input along with the community's input to support the superintendent's constraints so they can line up, and not disagreeing with what their superintendent says, to say, because it's their ownership, because they know exactly what they need to achieve within the administration, and we have to support that because we have ours. Like one of our constraints was we would not hire teachers, put them in IR campuses that don't have more than 3 years experience. Well, we've completed that constraint. I think that they've been hiring teachers, placing them not in IR campuses, and they can give us reports back to that on how many teachers they've probably been putting in IR campuses with the growth that we know that we've had mature teachers in there. And so that's just my comment on that. I can just go back from where I was from the beginning and where we are right now, and then how we'll be able to move forward. Thank you, Madam President.
The goals belong to the board.
Right.
The goal progress measures belong to the superintendent. The constraints belong to the board, right, and the constraint progress measures belong to the superintendent. Mm-hmm. So do we agree that it is what, a 4?
I mean, we've come a long way.
Mm-hmm. Is that what we agreed to, was 4 points? Okay. All right, let's go on accountability 1.
Alrighty, for accountability 1, the board invests at least half of its time focusing on its vision and student outcome goals. It's like right now we are preparing to focus, which is 1 point. And we need to meet all of the conditions here before we can move on to the next. And we need to meet those conditions as well. So the board's adopted a board monitoring calendar, which we have. And I know that practice has been in place here in the district for quite some time. The board's received a monitoring report that evidences to the board whether or not reality matches the adopted student outcome goals, constraints, and progress measures. A monitoring report must contain the goal, constraint being monitored, the measures showing the previous 3 reporting periods, the current reporting period, and the annual and deadline targets, and the superintendent's evaluation of performance, and supporting documentation that evidences the evaluation and describes any needed next steps. I think meeting all of those components at the workshop that we had last week during agenda review, we went through some of the different components that we should have on a consistent basis. And I think for the most part we're there, but we're working on improving on that.
Great. So according to you, it's 1. All right. Trustee Davila.
I actually think we're at 4. Approaches focus. I think we've come a lot further in the work that we've done and what we have monitored as a board. And this is actually our 2.5. I think we established the goals when Trustee Adams was president, and I think they're up for renewal or tweaking next year in 2020. So I actually think we're a lot more ahead than preparing to focus. I think we're approaches focus and closer to meets focus because we're towards the end. I mean, we have a monitoring calendar that's been tweaked a bit. We've approved it. We've approved our student outcomes focus has really improved greatly. I mean, I think that's the thing we have to brag about the most. I mean, I think we started at 15% in January, and last month we were at 78% student outcome focus. I mean, our goal was 50% student outcome focus for the year. I mean, we set a policy saying that would be it, and we're at 78, which shows that it is feasible and it is possible to do it because the work was done 3 years ago, and so I actually think we're a little more ahead. So I actually disagreed with the one. I actually believe we're at approaches focus with 4.
Okay, so you're thinking that we are at 4, right? Okay, other board members.
So going through too, I was a little bit confused because the total monthly minutes spent, like is that total monthly minutes spent per quarter, over the year, for 1 month? So, I mean, if you look at where we are.
Quarter. Yeah,
as per quarter.
Quarters.
I mean, I would say we are at higher than 10%. So I know that we have the components in our board monitoring evaluations reports that come to us. We have those components that are part of it. I think we could, like I said, we need to make sure that they're there all the time. But we know now what to look for. We've been trained on it, right?
Yeah, and I think, wasn't your annual 15%?
Yes, the annual.
The annual, yeah.
But that was over the entire year.
Yeah.
Which, if you're looking at your time trackers, you guys have been increasing all the way, especially from the summer. So you're looking at 4.
Looking at 4.
And I pretty much agree with that.
Yep.
Good job, Anna. Okay, is everybody else okay? Since we had a little back and forth there? Okay. Accountability 2.
Okay, I think on accountability 2, we're at a 0.5, but we'll be approaching the focus 4 after we vote on the superintendent's evaluation. But there clearly, the superintendent's annual evaluation is based on student outcome and the progress monitoring goals that are clearly established. So I say we're approaching 4, but we're almost there.
So you've got you at 0.5 right now?
Yes.
Yes. And so what you're saying, but I agree, rather quickly you can get to meets focus.
Yes, after we vote on the superintendent's evaluation based on the student outcome and progress measures.
Right, certain processes in place, you'll get it.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Skillen-Jones, are you in agreement? Okay?
Yeah, agree.
Thank you very much. So 0.5. The board self-evaluation needs to come before the superintendent.
So the board self-evaluation, we do that every quarter, right? We go through this exact same process every quarter.
So you've done one even
Yeah, we
before.
did one
And one of the things
recently.
that I was at the...
And in fact, we're doing one now, again.
At the summit. Well, what's happening is at the state level, they are moving to remove an annual evaluation so that we only have them by quarters. So if you've previously done a quarter evaluation, then you're good. Okay. Well, and that's just coming about. Okay. Structure.
So structure, the board delegates to the superintendent operational authority to accomplish the vision and student outcome goals. Currently, we're at a 1. And we are headed to leave, according to this, to stay at a 1 for a while. I'm kind of curious why we're not trying to get to 4. Because getting to 4 is doing a consent agenda, and aren't we already doing that? Or working towards that?
You are doing a consent agenda. In fact, with Lone Star Governance, everything should start on a consent agenda and then be pulled way before the meeting begins. So it expedites the whole meeting, so everyone will know what they're doing when. So the main thing, too, is to keep your focus on those items that you really want to discuss. Everything else goes on consent, so that the majority of your time during any one board meeting, any meeting, agenda review, regular meeting, whatever, is focused the majority of the time on student outcome goals.
Correct, but I guess my question is, we're pretty close to getting to 4, so why are we leaving ourselves at 1 on structure for the coming quarter, as opposed to just trying to do 4 with fidelity?
In this particular framework, you either get all or nothing. So if there's any...
So what are we not... Okay, so then the question is, what are we not doing in approaching focus currently?
All consent eligible items are on consent. Is that correct? The board limits its adoption of local policies regarding school system operations to matters that are required by law, or an appropriate exercise of the board's oversight and authority is defined by the board's adopted constraint.
So we have to adopt a constraint before we can get to 4.
You limit your adoption of local policies regarding school system operations to matters that are strictly required by law.
Or an appropriate exercise of the board's oversight authority is defined by our board's adopted constraint. So we would have to adopt a constraint about an appropriate exercise of the board's oversight authority. And a constraint on the board, not a constraint on the administration, a board constraint, before we can achieve.
Right, but you are very close.
May I respond? I think I could be helpful with that. So basically what this says is school board members, according to Lone Star Governance, should really shed a lot of the policies that you have on the book, right? And just focus on what policies you're required to have by law, and then 5 policy areas as defined by our adopted constraints. And we've got a lot of policies on the books. I mean, ethics policies. We've got an anti-bullying policy. I mean, if you've been around in HSD for a while, you've watched this board pass all kinds of policies, right? And they are certainly our policies on our books that are outside these, our 5 current board constraints. So it's actually not a board self-constraint, it's the board's constraints on the superintendent, actually.
Well, and in the policy review...
So you were given, we were all emailed a draft strategic plan, right? And in that strategic plan, I just pulled it out. The policy review is due to be introduced to us in April. So that's why for the coming quarter, we wouldn't hit that one yet.
But the policy review will come to fruition in the springtime. At that point, you're going to be looking at policies, and if those policies do not really support your student outcome goals, then it's your decision. Do we keep this policy, or do we give this policy to the superintendent to do? And that's the whole point of LSG, is to shed policies. In other words, don't be in policy overload. So this particular piece, yes, you're going to be working on yourselves as a board in trying to look at policies. Do we want to keep it, or do we want to give it to the superintendent? And the whole deciding factor is, does it support our goals or not? Okay? And you have not gone through that process yet. But you will soon. So you're right, you're very close to 4. All right, so we're going to leave it at 1 at the moment. Advocacy. Yeah.
All right, so for advocacy, the board promotes the vision. And, I mean, right now, you get zero points for still doing these things. So we're sitting here, but we don't get even a half a point credit for these things. The board has not arranged for any board community or board member-led community engagement activities during the previous 12-month period, which we're doing right now. Right. And the board has not publicly communicated the board-adopted student outcome goals. I guess we go back to how would you define publicly communicate? Because when we did go through this work under then President Adams' leadership in 2017, we had some retreats. We went through the work. Everything was revised online. You can find them there now. I think we had some. Are the posters still down here with our board goals? And if not, they're out. They're up there. They're posted there. They're out in the hallway. So we have. I mean, there's that form of communication.
They've got to be able to come.
So to get one, now to get to 1 point, it's working on the two-way communication system, and I think that we'll have an opportunity to figure out and define what that ideal two-way communication system is for our community and our school district.
And I think that's just designing a process.
So right now, unfortunately, I mean, we're not even though we did those two things, we're not getting any credit for it. If I were to give feedback and a focus group of some sorts about, I would at least say half a point, but we can't do that. It's outside of the rules.
No, but I had a board that just was determined they had to have a half a point.
Okay.
So, but unfortunately now it's 0.
Yeah.
But you're very close. You're very, very close. And as you have pointed out, Trustee Lyra, it will not take long to move. Even though here you are, almost instantly you can move quickly by getting a lot of these things in place. Last is unity. Who had unity? Okay, over here.
So we've moved past 0. We were at a 3 until last week when we didn't achieve a quorum at a board meeting, so we're back to 1.
Okay, so you see yourself as 0?
1.
I couldn't hear you very well.
1.
1, okay.
So because 3 says that the board was able to achieve a quorum at all authorized public meetings during the previous 12-month period. And we did not have a quorum at an authorized public meeting last week, so that moved us back to 1.
To 1? No, that's true.
So I also flagged that, and I would actually say I was even harder grader on ourselves. So I actually said we don't have a 1 either, because I don't know that we affirm every other year that we've reviewed all policies governing board operation procedures. Do we? No. And then...
But we did this year.
Did we? I don't remember that agenda item, but... And then the second is all board members have signed statements during the previous 12-month period about the ethics and conflict of interest statement. And I actually had to go look that up in our policy manual and find it. Yeah. Oh, we do. So that one we've got. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, then I take it back. I'm sure I've turned that into board service. If you asked me to, I'm sure I have. I just didn't equate that thing with this item. Okay.
So we're in agreement 1?
No, I don't know if we have reviewed all policies governing board operating procedures. I don't know if we have.
You have not. So it goes back to...
So yeah.
Because remember,
close to 1, but still goose egg, yeah.
It's all or nothing. Okay, so we're in agreement at 0. Okay. All right, thank you very much. And I will go through and write up your report and get this to you. Also, you have your time tracker with you. You can evaluate that at any time. You have the complete time tracker, and then you have it also by quarters, quarter by quarter by quarter, as well as the evidence found within your meetings that support that, of how you use your time. No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have my information, and I can write.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Trustee Sung, who's really taken the lead on assisting and organizing the community meetings and also being the liaison for the board for any other meetings that need to be with Dr. Lathan or our next board coaches or other trustees. Thank you, Trustee Sung. Next, we will move on to the superintendent's priority items. Dr. Lathan.
Good evening, Ms. Stevens. If you would come and present Goal 4, please. Goal Progress Monitoring 4.1. Can I have a point of personal privilege, Madam President? Before you go on, first of all, I just want to, before you go into your presentation, I want you to know how much I appreciate you since I got here. And thank you for all that you've done and being a true person in this district and working really hard to count every student, to do everything that you did in research. And I want to thank you. And I know you're going to be missed in this district when you retire, but I just want to let you know personally, publicly. I want to give you your flowers while you're here to let you know that I really, really, really appreciate you. Now you can go. Because people don't know, there's many times. And I want to thank you for taking my phone calls and staying as long as you did. And I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Adams. It seems like Trustee Adams has started something because now I have Ms. Keillor-Jones who would like to make some comments. And we're going to go from Ms. Keillor-Jones all the way down this way. So go ahead, Ms. Keillor-Jones.
You still do have me till December 20th.
That's
December
okay.
31st is my official last
We
meeting
never
right before
know.
break.
Yeah, so I was saving this, but Carla, so goes the standard, so goes Carla. You are respected around this state so much. Sitting on the Texas Association of School Boards, even the conversation is around data, centers around what you do here in HISD. You set the mark for the state. It's a gold standard, and I could not have been prouder to be a part of those discussions when they happen. I'm sure, someone will come along and they'll be great, but I want to tell you how fabulous, competent, and outstanding your leadership in that department has been. And as the district moved to qualitative data with the Lone Star governance and the other kinds of things, as a trustee, I appreciate the times that you had to teach me like a fifth grader what this meant. It meant a lot to me for you to be able to sit and do that with me and to explain those things. Your presence will be missed. It will leave us with a leadership vacuum that is hard to replace.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your service. We appreciate the time that you spent here with all of us and prior to us coming here. And we appreciate that you leave a legacy of that department across this state that will be remembered and will be a foundation for what's to come. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, you know that I knew you before I was on the board, and there's a lot of things that folks may not know this, but you are the epitome of professionalism here in HISD. You are the epitome of what a good heart, a good person coupled with this tremendous skill set that is going to be very difficult for anyone to achieve in our district. But more importantly, I know you as a person that has a servant spirit, because when I was working on my doctorate and I was looking for some help on these very complex standard deviation analysis, who did I turn to? I turned to you. And you was just an open heart and a willingness to help me in my doctorate dissertation. I am forever grateful of knowing you and for you to help me. But you exemplify what HISD is all about: professionalism, skill set, and a good heart. And I know our journey is going to end in HISD pretty soon for both of us, but the Lord has bigger plans for us. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Carla, your reputation precedes you, not just in the work that you've done here in HISD over the years, but as my colleagues have said, across the state of Texas and really across the country. I've had the opportunity to see you present at the Council of Great City Schools. I know the recognitions you've gotten nationally, and it's because, appropriately, right? Houston's one of the great cities of the United States, and we have one of the great minds here leading the way for us. And it's been such a privilege. It's been a highlight of my service thus far on HISD to, as we walked into Lone Star Governance together, right? Back in 2017 when I started on this board, we all learned it together, right? Before there were coaches like Ms. Marsha and Ms. Lori, we had to hold hands and figure it out together, right? And we wouldn't have gotten this far without your leadership. And I've, been able to watch your work up close. And we're just so fortunate to have had your leadership here, and we're going to continue benefiting from it. We all will here in HISD, across Texas, and across the country. You've touched so many people. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I was trying to remember when did you get to this role? What year? Do you remember?
So this role I started in 2007. I've been in the district, actually when I retire on December 31st, they'll count it as 30 years of service credit because I will have completed a fall semester of another academic year. So wow. 30 is a nice, good round number.
So I was trying to remember if we both started at the same time, but I actually started in 2005. And then you came onto that role in 2007. So you were.
I was I've been in the research department my entire career.
And so we both went through that heartburn of whether it was EVAS,
yes,
or student data. You did all the hard work. You made something out of nothing because we were really doing a lot of things in the dark, whether it had to do with teacher evaluations or student evaluations. And I want to applaud you for that because I think many people would have ran in an opposite direction versus having to take on the challenge. And thank all of your team for all the hard work and long hours, because I know that the board throughout the years has thrown some really hard challenges and have made you go back and look at things that probably you would have never thought of looking at in a certain format, and you have brought us that. I don't think I ever heard you say no. I always heard you say, we'll look into it, we'll produce it for the next presentation, and so I appreciated you at least trying. And then when it wasn't possible for you to admitting, saying, we just don't have that data and it can't be produced because we just couldn't, and we took it as that, because if you couldn't do it, we just knew nobody else could do it. So I want to thank you for that and shedding light to a lot of the deficiencies that we have in this district that has turned into success for the students of Houston. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. You're a living legacy here in Houston and Texas, across the U.S. You've mentored so many people that have learned from you that are, up in different parts of the United States. I've had the pleasure of working with you before I joined the board as well. And you are the most professional person. You have so much knowledge in what you do. You take so much care for every single detail, which you have to in this kind of work. and you're open to dialogue and conversation and just really up for any kind of challenge. I've never seen you in a negative light, not once, despite some really challenging tasks at hand. Super professional. You really care about our students in our district, and I'm so honored to have been able to see that from the outside, and also being here on the dais as a board member. You're an asset. We are going to have a vacuum, and I know that you have mentored though a lot of people, and I'm hoping that they're going to continue to follow in your footsteps, and we just really do appreciate you, and I wish you the best in your next phase of life. Thank you so much for 3 decades worth of time and dedication to our district. You're a wonderful, kind-spirited person. Best of luck. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So while I've only been on this side of the table for a couple of years, for many, many years I was on the other side, and so I've been watching all of this, and I want to thank you for persisting even when it was hard. I know you are not always in the easiest place to come stand in front of the board every single month, and I appreciate the fact that you continued year over year over year to choose our kids here in HISD, because I'm sure you had a choice and you chose our kids, and for that I'm incredibly grateful, because your work and dedication to our kids is what has helped us make progress for them. I'm grateful to you for the conversations you've had that have helped me understand data better so I could be a more informed board member in this process, and that I will carry forward even after you're gone, and even though I'm disappointed that you will be gone. So thank you.
Thank you all so much.
You may begin.
So, if I could take just a point of privilege to just acknowledge and thank you all so much for those kind words. You don't know how hard it is for me to stand here and hear all of that, because I like being behind the scenes. I like being the one who actually is supporting the work of the district. It really has been my honor and my privilege to work for this district. I truly believe in the mission and the vision and the focus of this district on our kids, because that really is why we are all here and why I do what I do every day. So it's not about me. It is about the work and about the children and about the learning. And I do want to say my team is awesome. I have a fabulous department and staff, and I know that they will just continue. They are rock stars in and of their own right. You just guys don't get to see them all the time, but they are phenomenal, and the department will continue to produce the work that you expect and the work that you've seen. So I appreciate your kind words, and you still have me for a little bit longer. We do have a couple more of these presentations, and I will try to make today's short, because we've taken a lot of time, and I value the community that are here to also present to you, or to speak to you and to give you their opinions. And so I want to make this short, but I will be happy to give you our Goal 4, which is our progress monitoring. For the Goal 4, as you all have redesigned it, it is a relatively complex goal, which is looking at closing the gaps and looking at it for all of these different student groups, specifically economically disadvantaged, non-economically disadvantaged, African American, white, Hispanic, English learners, students receiving disabilities, having those gaps then averaged across, and we want to make sure that that average decreases by 1 percentage point, and this would be based on our STAR. In order to meet this goal, however, it's not only just about decreasing the gaps, but also making sure that all student groups are improving, because if one student group does not improve, then we still don't meet this goal. So that's the goal. Given that, we have progress measures that we've had to boil down to be able to provide you all information, specifically on our screener. And so our progress measure 4.1 is on economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged gap, wanting to make sure that that decreases by 1 percentage point. We also have some additional information that I'll be providing in your report. It's not in the presentation, but we do have the race and ethnicity gaps on the screeners are also in the data that you have. So in looking at the gap for economically disadvantaged students, this is based on the beginning of the year screener, which actually happened in September 3rd through September 24th. The demographic data or the economically disadvantaged data that we used at that time was what was available at that time. So it actually has now, the data here reflects what was available then. So you can see that our economically disadvantaged student performance, the purple line, is fairly close to where we were at the beginning of the year last year at 38% at or above the 40th percentile. The non-economically disadvantaged is much lower. We do believe that part of that decrease is because of when we pulled this data in September. Campuses have the opportunity to continue to clean up their economically disadvantaged status up until the October fall PEAM snapshot. So we will be looking at updating this data now that we have it available. We didn't have it available at the time that we had to have this posted in order to meet today's deadline. But as we get more information, we will be happy to update this and make sure that we have the most accurate data for you. So given what we had available to us in September, it shows that 59% of our non-economically disadvantaged students were at or above baseline or at or above benchmark. Like I said, we will be updating that data and providing more updated data to you. So with that, the gap did go down a little bit, but also the performance for the non-economically disadvantaged students went down. So when we have a better accounting for the economically disadvantaged students, now that we have passed the fall October PEAM snapshot, we will revisit this to make sure that we're accurately showing you the information that we have. So given what we had, we were closing the gap, but we did have some decreases. So this is now looking at the data for reading and math separately, and you can see again the economically disadvantaged students, that's the purple line, are fairly similar to where they were at the beginning of the year last year. So 28 compared to 29 in reading, 48 compared to 50 in math. The biggest decreases are on the non-economically disadvantaged students, but like I said, when we're able to clean that data up, we may see some changes in this. And then when we look at our Achieve 180 campuses, you can see for the Achieve 180 office, the economically disadvantaged students actually showed a little bit more or performed a little bit better than the non-economically disadvantaged students, but are still about at the same place where they were at the beginning of year last year. And then when you break it out by reading and math, you see similar trends. The reading is still fairly consistent with where we were last year. The math for economically disadvantaged students for the Achieve 180 office is at 34, and the beginning of the year last year was at 33. And when we go to the Achieve 180 program, similar trends are seen here too. For the Achieve 180 and the non-Achieve 180, when you look at economically disadvantaged, we're still tracking pretty consistent for where we are at the beginning of the year this year compared to beginning of the year last year. And then the non-economically disadvantaged students are performing lower. But again, we will revisit this now that we have more complete data. And then this is for reading, similar trends that we've talked about, and this is for math. So that's our presentation for today. I just want to make sure that you all know that for December, we will be looking at agenda review. We will have goal progress measures 4.2 and 4.3, which is the same gap data, but for English learners and for students with disability based on the screener. And our progress monitoring window has recently completed. That was October 14th through November 1st, and those results will be presented to you in January.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? All right, we're going to start. If my colleagues don't mind, we have one student that has signed up to speak, and it's 7 o'clock. And if my colleagues don't mind, I'd like to have that student come up and speak before we start our questioning. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, but is Marin Hart still here? Okay, all right. So let me read this out first, and then you can come up. We are doing our hearing of community in two parts in order to prioritize our students who have signed up to speak. The guidelines remain the same. Only those who have registered by 9:30 a.m. today may speak this evening. Copies of handout materials must have been provided to board services by 9:30 a.m. today. We have one student speaker registered this evening. The total time allotment for speakers shall not exceed 30 minutes. Speakers during the hearing of the committee shall be limited to 2 minutes each. Ms. Hart, you may come up to the podium now. And you will have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Marin Hart, and I'm a senior at the Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. I'm here as part of Period Houston, and I'm here to talk about, periods, something not often discussed in settings like this and in relation to education. But according to a study conducted by Always, 1 in 5 girls has left school early or missed school altogether because they did not have access to menstrual products. In Houston alone, that amounts to 38,000 students whose education is affected by something they have no control over. Because a box of tampons can cost between $7 and $10, plus the sales tax applied by 40 states, families struggling financially cannot always afford to buy them. For the nearly 75% of HISD students who are economically disadvantaged, this is a problem they may face. The inability to afford menstrual products leads students to endanger their health by using products for longer than recommended, make makeshift products out of unsanitary materials, and be embarrassed and distracted in class when they should be learning. In 2016, New York City Congresswoman Jalissa Ferreras Copeland put a single dispenser of free pads and tampons in a high school in Queens. In just 6 months, attendance rates rose to 2.4%. The program has been so well received, it has spread to 25 other schools. I look forward to talking more about specific ways to address this issue at little to no cost to HISD. Some schools are allotted funds by the state, others receive the products from charitable organizations. School districts from Georgia to Toronto are joining the effort to offer free menstrual products to students. To truly reach equity in education, HISD should do the same. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. A very bold conversation that needs to be had, and currently there are 8 females serving on this board, so I hope one of my colleagues will reach out and find out what it is we can do in order to... Thank you, Dr. Lita. I was just pointed out by Trustee Villaseca that we did not approve our board monitoring update presentation, so we must do that before we do our questioning, colleagues. So if we may, will I have a motion to approve the presentation that was given to us? Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, please vote. And this is not the presentation that Carla did. This is the presentation that was done before. Right. It is Carla. Oh, I'm sorry, it is.
The script calls for a vote of 8-2 and 8-3.
Ah.
From last agenda review?
Yes. Oh, that's right. It was, that's right. It was from the last meeting. Okay. And motion carries 7-4, 0 against, 0 abstention. This was A2? Was it A3 or A2? A2 was last week or this week?
A2 is this week. A2 is this week, A3 is last week. So we have discussion on today's.
So we're supposed to vote on A3 and not A2?
Both.
But right now, we took a vote on A2, which is what Carla just presented, which we're having a discussion on right now. Correct?
I'm just following you to consider A2 and A3, and I wasn't sure which one that was.
So I think we just need to vote. We're confused on the items because one of those items was presented to us last week, and it's A3. But I think that there's some of our colleagues that wanted to have a discussion on what we just heard for A2. So we just voted on A2.
Yes.
So if we want to discuss
So if you want to have discussion, reconsider the vote.
Reconsider the vote.
Yeah, the only one I see is Trustee Sung up here, so I don't know. It's probably because of the vote that because when that screen comes on, it kind of erases this. So, okay. So, all right. So, how do we?
But I was just asked to reconsider the vote, then get another motion and second, and then have discussion before you vote.
Okay. So, so is it a motion? A motion to reconsider the vote that we just took.
I move to reconsider the vote on A2.
Okay. Discussion.
Now vote on that.
Oh, we have to vote on this. All right. There we go. Motion carries. All right, now we're ready to discuss the A.
Make a motion on the item.
Oh, that's right. Back to A2. So, do I have a motion for A2? So moved. There a second?
Second.
Any discussion? There we go. All right.
Now we can have discussion, starting with Trustee Nygaard, followed by Trustee Sung.
As always, thank you. So I just want to clarify, when we have a decline, it's a good thing. Like, for example, on page 12 of the presentation, this is measuring not the performance of the students, but the gap in the performance of the students. And so the non-EcoDisc kids going from 74 to 59, and the EcoDisc kids going from 45 to 38 means the gap closed.
Yes.
Yes?
So we want the green line to go up, the purple line to go up, and the blue line to go down.
Okay, so I did interpret this the way that I thought I did. So the question I have then is, I'd like clarification on the evaluation that we are on track for the gap, because on page 2 of the presentation, if at the last part of goal 4, if this average gap decreases but the percentage of students that meets grade level standard on STAR for any of the student groups listed in the goal declines, then the goal shall be considered not met. So if you could just clarify that, it would be appreciated.
Yes. So based on the data that we are showing up in front of you, the blue line went down, so that means that the gap has decreased, but the green line also went down and the purple line went down, so therefore we're not on track for the performance. So therefore, we are not on track for this goal. I did want to show that we were starting to close the gap, but we're not going to meet this goal at the end of the year because it's not going to be analyzed until spring. So this is a leading indicator. The red line is for where we will be in the spring. So we want to make sure that we keep that blue dot at or below the red line. But we now have at the middle of the year and the end of year to get the green lines and the purple lines up. So we want to make sure that the students are showing growth.
So wouldn't we not be on track for the gap?
You are not on track for the gap.
Okay.
You're not on track for this indicator.
Okay.
We're closing the gap, but because the indicator, the whole goal is saying that, yeah, you can close the gap, but you also have all the performances going up. So I wanted to show that, yes, we did close the gap based on the data that we're presenting here, but you're not going to meet this goal because the performance is going down. Currently. Now, of course, this is a beginning of the year metric. So this means that, first of all, we need to make sure that we have all of the students coded as economically disadvantaged. And then secondly, we now have the middle of the year and the end of the year to continue to put things in place to make sure that student performance is increasing.
And you commented that because of when the data was pulled, that not all of the data was available.
Correct.
Do you think we should consider adjusting the monitoring calendar so we could have better data accuracy the next time we monitor this next year?
Yes, that's something my team and I have talked about, is that it actually would help us on this one if we would basically swap what I'm presenting in December, which is going to be the English learners and the students with disabilities. That data is usually more consistent and a little more accurate earlier in the year. Still gets cleaned up by the October PEIM snapshot, but economically disadvantaged campuses are working all the way up to snapshot to try to get those forms in for kids.
Okay.
So this is still probably, at the time that we pulled this in September, would have been an undercount on economically disadvantaged students. So we will be providing an updated report to you all showing the, now that the fall PEIM snapshot has happened, that data is more accurate, more complete, and we'll be revising this.
So another thing that I'm struggling with in all of this, and it's something I've talked about many, many times, is the equity of how we even assess kids, right? That right now we only have a tool that assesses kids in English or in Spanish, but may not be accurately assessing the actual abilities of the students taking those tests if those languages are not their first language. With the exception of like dual language kids, I get that that's a special bucket of kids. And so in this data, can you, especially because there was such a big drop for both groups on beginning of year assessment, I'm curious to know who are our outlier students. You know, if you were to disaggregate this, would you see differences in different student populations? What do we know about the students who are taking these assessments that, you know, is it because all EcoDisc kids are doing worse? Are there some schools, are there some population of students that are doing better or worse?
At this point, I would like to delay response until we actually can redo this at some point in time with more accurate economically disadvantaged data, because this data is actually based on 59%. We were reporting 66% of our students economically disadvantaged at the time that this was pulled, because it was pulled in September in order to meet the deadlines in order to get this posted. And so we know that that's not our economically disadvantaged rate. Okay. So I think that we will have more accurate data once we're able to use our full PEIM snapshot, which we now have the ability to use. We just couldn't in time to meet this deadline, which is another reason why we didn't do a campus level analysis for this one. You'll see in December. We will have done campus level analysis, but again, we were concerned using preliminary economically disadvantaged data to be able to make too many conclusions on it at that point.
Okay. And then are all kids given this test at the same time, or is the window small, or is the window large, and could that be impacting, does that have any impact on the results?
So the window is between September 3rd to September 24th.
Okay.
So about 3 weeks at least in the month of September. And we have also, as we presented this information to you all, I believe it was last month when we were talking about screener data, we talked about how we had a slightly smaller number of students that were tested this year because we're getting better at actually implementing the screener for those students who need the screener test. And so the in counts which we talked about last time, is just a little bit smaller. So that could also be a little bit why there may be some difference, but I really believe it's because we pulled this data in September in order to meet our deadline.
Okay, so we're going to have an opportunity to look at this again after you guys, okay. And then one
When we
last,
present this, we'll have it updated.
one last question. Page 6 and 7, the Achieve 180 campuses, the different tiers of Achieve 180 have changed over these years, correct? Like which schools are in which different tier? Are there schools that used to be part of this that are no longer in this universe, or schools that are in this universe now that weren't before?
So when we do this analysis, we take the current schools with the current configuration and go back 3 years.
Okay.
So it's not the same data that you would see if you pulled up last year's Achieve 180, because that would have based on the configuration last year.
Okay.
So we make sure that when we are showing multiple years of data on the Achieve 180, we're actually taking this year's 33 campuses that are in the A180 office, and we're looking at their data over the last couple of years.
So if we were to pull up last year's report of this, if there were different schools in that mix, the 2018-19 data may look different on that than it would on this one. Okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Sung. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Dr. Lathan. Thank you, Ms. Stevens, for the presentation. So we spent some time talking about on page 4 about how because this was pulled in September, that then we would expect that if we review this data, it would change. At this point, the way the data would change, like the direction of it, depends on which students are identified as ECOTIS. Is that right? So we can't say that the gap would be greater or smaller. So really, we're looking at an approximation that could be off, a point, 2 point, a couple points, like who knows, right? So making a big deal about, 1 point, this way or the other, is kind of hard to do at this point.
So, in other words, we may have students in the green line, non-economically disadvantaged, that actually are economically disadvantaged students, and they should be in that purple group. The ones who are in the purple group, they are economically disadvantaged, they're coded, we have them. It's the ones that are in the green lines where that may also be including economically disadvantaged students, we just didn't have their information at the time that this was pulled.
Right, so if you imagine that really that green dot was like a green cloud, right? And
it could be a little bit
then depending on who moves from that cloud to the purple cloud, then where that blue dot falls could go up or down, right? Depending on the classification. So, okay, so we don't know, right? So, okay. So then I'm going to kind of postpone, questions about where we are, et cetera, because I don't think it's meaningful to spend a lot of time on that when we're not clear on the data. One thing I was confused about when we get to page 6, right? So for Achieve 180, we have tiers of support, and you've got IR schools here. There were some schools that I read target improvement plans for this meeting, right? Like Osborne, that I don't see here, even though they are IR. So am I misreading that?
No, you're not. With the explanation, some schools stayed in their feeder pattern and were providing certain levels of support, but they were not identified as Achieve 180. One of the things I think I shared probably a while back, and we've discussed this as a team, is we will use, because the data was final in August, that it was after school started notifying staff as it relates to all the complete program for Achieve 180, that next year we will utilize preliminary data to identify schools as Achieve 180 for the full support program, if that includes extended Wednesdays, so that staff have time to prepare. And so that was one of the decisions made, to leave those schools in their feeder patterns.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just confused. Okay, thank you. That makes sense. That's clarifying. Okay. Okay, great. So then I'm going to withhold my more detailed questions in the remainder of the presentation, but I want to bring my colleagues' attention to the goal monitoring report, which actually is behind A3. So I don't know if everybody found it there. So at the end of A3, which is the presentation that we heard last week, right, at Agenda Review, there we have the goal monitoring report for everything being presented this month. So Goal 2 and also Goal 4. And then last week, we had a training at Agenda Review about how to do goal progress monitoring, right, and how to look for the components of those monitoring reports and ask questions. And for colleagues who weren't able to make it or who were having babies last Thursday, that presentation was emailed to us on Monday of this week. So everybody has it in your email for reference. Okay, so then I'm just taking a look at this, because this is exciting. This is our first Goal 4. So this is a new goal that we adopted, and this is our first progress monitoring report, correct, for Goal 4? Yes. Okay, so I'm excited to see this, and if I'd like to kind of walk through that. So that's packet page 64 in our agenda packet page 64, our goal monitoring report for November, Goal 4. And I see that what we're progress monitoring is actually 4.1, right? But then we've got a lot of information here on Goal 4, and I wonder if you could just start by explaining to us like what we're looking at here for Goal 4.
So the information in your goal monitoring report for Goal 4 presents the data from STAR from the 2019 results. We also went back and did 2018 and 2017 so that you would have 3 years of data, even though this is the first time that you're actually looking at it. So what is showing, and there isn't a presentation on this because it's actually in your report, what those numbers are, and you can see for 2019 the number is a 31.7. That is actually the average of the changes or the gaps between all 5 of those groups. So taking the gaps between economically, non-economically disadvantaged students, African American and white, Hispanic and white, English learners and non-English learners, and students receiving special education services and students not receiving special ed services, taking what those gaps are in reading and in math, and then averaging them. And so we can see that when you made this goal, we had an average in 2018 of 30.3. We actually, for 2019, was 31.7, but again, we didn't have the goal approved in time, so you're not really going to meet it or not meet it on the 2019 data. It just gives you more information. So we have the target then would be set based on that 2018 data of moving down to 29.3, 28.3, and 27.3 in the next 3 years. Oh, thank you very much. And so now you can see where we are and where you need to be for the 2022, which is really going to be the first time that we would be doing an evaluation of whether or not we met the goal. So that's why we put on this one the evaluation of baseline, because even though we set the targets off of the 30.3, it was set already in the middle towards end of the 18-19 school years, so that wouldn't have impacted what we were doing to be able to achieve that. So the data for the 31.7 is also, again, like a baseline.
Okay, great. That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you. So the 2019 is, of course, a baseline because it was adopted mid-year, but then come 2020, right, then that's a goal that's been set.
That's where we want
to start to see that evaluation, but we won't have it until the summer. Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
And then the additional data, it's not on my clicker, so if you can forward the report, you can see the information on packet 65 gives you all of the different gaps. Can you move to packet 65?
Next page.
There we go. So this gives you all of the data to show the reading and the math combined. We also then have reading and we have math separately. You can see how the different groups performed, what their gap was in 17-18, what their gap is in 18-19, and then did the gap increase or decrease. The gap decreasing is green, so the negative numbers is good. You want the gap to go down. When the numbers are positive, that's red. The gap is increasing. But for even some of the ones where the gap was decreasing, if the performance did not increase, then we're back to where the goal is not met. So the data that you have in front of you, that is from STAR. So that was really to give you more information of where we were at the point in time when you then adopted this goal. So then the rest of the packet information is on the Renaissance data, which are the progress measures that we're looking at. Additionally, in here, you had asked in the goal to have race and ethnicity. It's not a progress measure, so we didn't present it in the PowerPoint, but it is in your report because you asked to be provided that information. So you can also see in your report on packet page 67, you can see the gaps for the white and Hispanic. We have it for all of the different groups and the different subject areas, reading and math combined, reading and math separated. We also have white and African American. That's also included starting on packet page 70. And then we get into the progress measure that's looking at the Renaissance data for the groups that we're talking about.
Okay. Great, thank you. And that's really helpful. I really appreciate all that baseline information. And since this is the first time we're progress monitoring goal 4, right, looking at progress measure 4.1, that's just helpful to have that background refreshed. So thank you very much for providing that. Okay, so then now I'm looking at packet page 73, right, which is the start of that goal progress measure. And so we've got, I'm just going down our checklist from last week, colleagues. So the progress measure being monitored is there. We have the previous reporting periods, 2 previous reporting periods, I guess. There, the 2 previous years. So something to consider then would be to add a previous reporting period if that data is available, or no?
This is
not.
Renaissance.
Oh, that's right. It's Renaissance. It's not there.
We didn't have it.
You didn't have it. So this is everything that's available. Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's checked. We've got all of our targets there. We can see. We have the superintendent evaluation of performance, which we've discussed. And then the final thing is supporting documentation and then next steps. So I guess Dr. Lathan, packet page 77, if you could describe for us, what are the next steps? So here we've got the response, but kind of like looking forward, right? Like what are we going to be doing to work on these gaps?
I think what we discussed in our discussion last week that it would not be on this particular document, that it would be moving forward, it would be on this. And so I'll have that information for the next report.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions then.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, David, for helping calling this out. So I know that right now we're discussing item A2, which was presented to us today. We're talking about goal 4. It's still part of A2, but here on the screen it's categorized under A3. So we just need to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Is there anything else? The item before us is still A2. So that there isn't any confusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go to 8.
You're also asking for a motion.
Trustee Song, are you... Okay, Trustee Billis, second. All right.
Thank you again. I have 3 questions, and the other questions I will reserve when we get the more updated reports in December. So just out of curiosity, I know that we had some issues with the timing of when it was reported, so we can have this conversation today. Did we have the same issues last year?
I don't believe I think we changed the calendar, so
Okay.
I'm not sure that we had the same issue last year because I think we discussed this at a different time.
Okay.
But we can check.
Okay, just curious.
It would help if we did switch the calendar.
Yeah. And then just out of curiosity, I know like in Renaissance 360, I'm just curious as to how much of this is automated reports that they have built within that system and you're good? Doesn't sound like it though. Or audit reports and then you have to adjust and convert and scrub and all that stuff so that we have it in this kind of formatting.
So the data that we have for Renaissance 360 is actually in a platform that the campuses access, the teachers can access it, the principals can access it. They're able to get on and see the information not only in the Renaissance platform, but even more importantly in our OnTrack, which is our formative assessment platform. There's a lot of reports and information that helps the teachers. They use the data in their professional learning communities. We have DDIS's data-driven instructional specialists that help the PLCs and the teachers to be able to pull all of the data from on the Renaissance. That data is most helpful at the classroom and at the student level to be identifying, and we have presented to you before the aggregated data of students who are needing urgent intervention, on watch, or at or above benchmark. So the campuses use the reports that are in OnTrack. They use the reports that are in Renaissance. That information is what's helpful to them. What you all have asked for is not how that data is presented, so then my team has to extract the data from the systems. We use the data files, and then we create the reports that you all have asked for. So this is not the information. It's the same underlying data, but these aren't the reports that the campuses use. They use ones that are actually in OnTrack that help them drill down into the individual student level, be able to look at the skills that the kids need, be able to sort the students based on needing urgent intervention or intervention, and that's the information that is useful and helpful to them.
Okay, thank you for helping us understand. Thank you, I appreciate it. Also, the last question that I had, I know that schools that are in the different tiers of Achieve 180 vary from one year to the next. Would it, do you, like your professional recommendation based on your expertise, would it be helpful to look at this at like cohorts? So you're looking at same groups of schools. I know looking at schools and students, but would that help us better have a better understanding of how our students in schools are performing?
So we do that in one way. The data that you're looking at now actually is the cohort of the campuses that are identified as Achieve 180 campuses for this year. And then all of the data that you're seeing for the prior years is that current year's cohort. Now, if you want us to every year track the prior year's cohorts, it's going to get a little confusing to you. Okay. If that's what you want, we can provide it, but we can take the year one Achieve 180 campuses and cohort and track them. We could take the year two and then the year three, but you're going to have a whole lot of data, and it's going to be slightly confusing, because what we've done for you now is tell you for the campuses that are identified as Achieve 180 with the current structure, here's how they did in the past, here's how they're doing now, and here are the targets that we want them to address. if you want to start doing it on all of the different cohorts, they're going to be receiving different supports because now some of those campuses have moved out of the different tiers into other tiers. So it's really up to what question are you trying to answer, and does it make sense to see the data in that way? We can produce it any way that you need it, but this is the way that we thought made the most sense at this point.
Very helpful to remind us of going back to what questions we want to have answered, given all of the work and effort that we have in crafting the goals, monitoring the goals, having the discussion, so that we can move our district forward. Thank you. I think that we'll be having that conversation sooner rather than later. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Trustee Dygard. I have a question for our coach. We're going to be voting to, and the language is voting to approve the presentation, or approve the report, specifically approve the presentation that was given to us. Given the fact that we've identified a challenge in the reporting on this one, would it be appropriate for us to consider a motion to postpone it until we have the revised report?
Can you come to the mic so that, I'm sorry.
Postponing it would be advisable.
Okay.
That would just be the natural thing to do at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there are other questions.
No,
you have about
well,
the report.
Trustee Sung has, do you have a question?
I do.
So when you...
I'll wait till everybody has asked their questions about it, but...
Okay, thank you. Trustee Sung?
Yeah, I do, so long as everybody's gone first round that wanted to go. Okay. So just going back to our baseline data, right, for goal 4, I'm wondering, Dr. Latham, looking at goal 4, like who is struggling the most and who's getting the most among the groups that we're looking at here? It's packet page 64, yeah.
Are you back on A3?
Well, I mean, should we,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I would like to do a point of inquiry, please.
Yeah.
I'm asking legal to discuss with the president and the vice president because we have to stay on track. We're discussing A3. We have to stay on the item that's before us. So I'm asking legal to discuss with Madam President. We need to conclude A3 because we're jumping ahead. A2 because we're jumping ahead. Thank you, David.
Yeah, no, I mean,
He's right there, but just...
No. I don't need him to talk to me. I thought I was clear already that we were on A2 versus jumping back to A3. So if we've concluded with questions on A2, then the next item we're going to be discussing is A3.
You have a motion.
okay.
A3.
No, I understand, but A2 is about goal 4, right?
I think it's just the placement of the item. Yes. I think it's...
So it's in the roll.
It's a pagination issue.
But it goes with your own A2. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so talking about goal 4, right, which I think is what the agenda item is about, right? The board monitoring update on goal 4, progress measure 1, and goal 4, support data, right? So for goal 4, like we have a lot of student groups that we're looking at, right? We're tracking them, the board is trying to make sure that we're closing gaps for students, right? So who's struggling the most, who's getting it the most?
Stevens, would you give an overview of that, please?
So the information's available on packet page 65 and packet page 66 that provides all of the data for each of the different student groups. for reading and math combined, reading separately and math separately for 2 years. And you can look at each of those and we can have that conversation based on the data in front of you as to which ones are lower, which ones are higher, which ones are improving, which ones are not. All of that information is provided in packet page 63. 65, sorry.
64 and 65. Okay, I see that. So I know this is baseline data, right? But what's been working in terms of closing gaps, where we've seen gaps closing? So the question is, where we've seen, so for 2018, 2019, right? We saw some gaps close, we saw some gaps widen, right? Like, what's been working, where it's been working? So overall, so on page 65, right, we were just directed to look at, we can see broken out for various groups, right, gaps, and where it's green on package page 65, you can see we've closed some gaps. You see some red, right, where gaps have widened, right? So I think that was the answer to my first question. So my second question is then, like, what's working, right?
So overall, I think I'm going to speak globally about if you look at our achievement results overall as a district, and then also based on our individual school, overall district rating and our school progress. What's working is we have the right staff working at the right schools, we have the right programs in place with the right professional development. We do need to do, of course, a better job of implementing with fidelity, looking at monitoring. That's the area, especially as we look at progress monitoring, and also responding sooner at some individual campuses based on certain student groups.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions, and I'm ready for anybody's motions.
Trustee Nygaard?
I move that we postpone voting on A2 until the administration has an opportunity to review their data and revise the report as they see necessary.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Otherwise, please vote. Motion carries 6-4, 0 against and 0 abstentions. All right, now we're on to item approval board monitor and update presentation of Goal 2 progress measure 1, 2, and Goal 2 support data. This was the presentation that was presented on November the 7th last week. Do I have a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? There being no discussion, please vote. Oh, it's because we do have discussion. Trustee Sung?
Thank you. So I wanted to ask Dr. Latham your thoughts on this. So we've talked about putting in, kind of reformatting the superintendent response, right, to kind of put in next steps, which is part of the Lone Star Governance Framework we just reviewed and self-evaluated ourselves on. So I know going forward, right, you're going to do next steps. Do you want to do that for these reports as well? Like, since you're revising the Goal Progress 4, do you want to go ahead and put in next steps? You want to start those in December? Okay.
Moving forward.
All right, great. Okay, so I have no further comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Would there be no further questions or comments? Please vote. Motion carries 5-4, 0 against and 1 abstention. We have now come to the portion of our meeting where we hear from the public. We are glad you are here and look forward to hearing your views. First, we will consider speakers to agenda items before taking action on business items. Hearing of the community speakers will be heard on the conclusion of the business agenda. Only those who have registered by 9:30 a.m. today may speak this evening. Copies of handouts materials must have been provided to board services by 9:30 a.m. today. So that our registered speakers can be heard by the board, we ask that there be no disruption of the meeting by members of the audience, no abusive statements or actions, no threats or confrontation, no audible expressions by the audience of approval or disapproval. We have 5 speakers registered for agenda items this evening. Speakers to agenda items shall be limited to 2 minutes each. If you have also signed up for a hearing of the community speakers, please speak to the agenda item first and then address your hearing of the community topic. We also ask that you stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as their identity is protected under law, but you may name your own child. We ask that you please speak directly into the microphone. The clock on the wall and on the right and on your podium will count down your time and will signal when your time is up. I ask that you please respect our procedures and end your remarks promptly when your time expires. Colleagues, please hold questions regarding any of these agenda items until we are ready to consider items held for discussion. Our first item held for registered speaker is B2, approval of amendment resolution ordering November 5th, 2019 general election for Houston Independent School District, single member district 2, 3, 4, and 8. We have Speaker Ann Ingleton. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Eagleton. I support your approval of item B2. I would also like for the board to reflect on the fact that our votes are fairly meaningless on this. We are losing our power. We're being taken over. Someone I've never met, I wouldn't know him if I fell on him, is going to be making the decisions for this school district. I would like HISD to continue the lawsuit against the TEA. I know some people think that it's a waste of money, but I'd also like to remind the board that HISD is currently engaged in a lawsuit where 22 girls were illegally strip searched at Lanier. Yes, we had a school nurse reaching into bras and panties looking for $50. You've been litigating it for years. That costs plenty of money. I never heard one person complain about how much money has been spent on that. Not one word has come out of one person's mouth. So I don't know why suddenly fighting for my right and my civil liberty for my vote to count is suddenly the time for HISD to go into penny pinching mode. I would like HISD to be on the correct side of people's civil liberties. We pay taxes. We should have our rights defended. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Our next item held for registered speaker is J1, consideration and approval of a contract for professional services related to conducting consultation elections and other professional service and to waive provisions of DGB local related to timelines for administrating the elections. Would Dr. Claudia J. Morales please come to the podium? Also would Daniel Santos, Andrew Dewey, and Lucia Moreno please come to the front and sit in the reserved seats. Is Dr. Morales here? You're first. Followed by Daniel Santos and Andrew Dewey.
Great.
You may begin.
Good evening, trustees and interim superintendent. My name is Claudia Morales, and I currently serve as the Professional Development Director at the Houston Federation of Teachers. I have also attended HISD schools and worked for HISD schools for several years and continue to live in the district. I am speaking today to support the consultation election to continue the robust collaboration between teachers and the administration of programs that empower teachers, such as the National Board Teacher Certification. I also want to take advantage of this opportunity to commend those teachers who are currently in the process and respectfully ask for your support. I appreciate your time. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Mr. Santos.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Daniel Santos, and I rise in support of item J1, Teachers are demanding a consultation election this year. Extending the timeline any further is a betrayal of trust. Vote yes to give teachers and support staff a voice. On the hearing of citizens, I rise to condemn the state takeover of HISD. I rise to condemn those who applaud the state takeover, and I rise to condemn the ones who remain silent. For the last 30 years, in over 100 cities from Newark to Philadelphia to Detroit, state takeovers have not worked to improve student achievement. So let's be clear. This state takeover of HISD is a power grab. It's a naked attempt to suppress our voice, an attack on self-governance, and an attack on this community's diversity. As a registered voter and activist, I shall earnestly and persistently continue to urge all decent Houstonians to resist the unelected, illegitimate Board of Managers. And next week, we will be standing our ground. And I call on all teachers, support staff, parents, and members of the community to stand with us, to stand proudly for democracy. And lastly, I would like to personally thank Trustee Davila, Trustee Lira, Trustee Skiller-Jones for their service. Our fight for social justice is only just beginning. Thank you.
Andrew Dewey.
Many HISD employees had their vote in last week's election nullified by the state. Please protect their right to vote for who they want to represent them in consultation by passing item J1. In 1870, the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution was passed. It reads, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." Despite that amendment, states began to pass voter suppression laws, literacy tests, grandfather clause, poll taxes to take away that vote. In 1964, just 55 years ago, James Clancy, Andrew Goldman, and Michael Schwerner were murdered for trying to register people to vote. 54 years ago, John Lewis was beaten at the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama trying to register people to vote. The world witnessed people demanding the right to vote being beaten, pushed down the street by high-pressure water hoses, dragged to the street by dogs for trying to vote. Over the years, there were countless lynchings of people who were simply trying to exercise their constitutional rights. The people were beaten, murdered, tortured, and lynched trying to secure voting rights. In 2019, Texas nullified the vote of thousands by replacing the elected HISD school board accountable to the people with an appointed board accountable only to one single appointed government bureaucrat. Our vote has been stripped from us. Where is the outrage? Some of you have been very vocal against it. Others of you have been silent. At least one of you have publicly welcomed it. Where is the outrage for people who have died to get the vote, and we're just giving it away?
Thank you. Lucia Moreno.
Good evening. Let me start with thanking the Fearless Five for believing and supporting our bilingual students. Remember the words of Emiliano Zapata, "If there is no justice for the people, let there be no peace for the government. Si no hay justicia para el pueblo, que no haya paz para el gobierno." I support consultation, and I will explain why it is important. My campus became an F campus this year. Why? Because we followed the strict directives of our administration. Everything asked of us, the teachers, we complied. We were not allowed to be creative. Instead, they believe in a system. We were not allowed to be creative. Instead, they believe in a system that a real teacher does not believe in. This administration feels we should be cookie-cutter teachers or a one-size-fits-all. We did not become teachers to become puppets. We feel strongly, and administrators who dictated these changes should take responsibility for the F, not the students or the teachers. Own it. By the way, the one teacher who did not follow the directives received a 92% in math, the only teacher that scored high. Now, those of us that speak out have targets on our backs. Teachers are being harassed, bullied, and placed on PPAs to humiliate and destroy a teacher's self-esteem. So when this year is up, HISD and TEA will have lost double the teachers that you did last year. The costs look no further than this administration. Many teachers will be leaving mid-year and will be losing their license. Why? Because we are not teachers, but puppets. So the Fearless Five, I tell you what my ex-principal taught me. Better to die on your feet.
Thank you. Thank you. We are ready now to move on to the remaining agenda items. For the record, let it be reflected that agenda item A3 was added with attachments and agenda items were revised at agenda items B1, B2, and J1. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest as defined in board policy. BBFA local. A conflict of interest is any circumstances that would cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act and total objectivity with regards to the district's interests. Starting with trustees to my far right, and Trustee Schuyler-Jones, I have your items D1 and I1A. Yeah, okay, I have those already. And continue on to my left, would each trustee state any agenda item that he or she wants held for separate discussion and state any agenda item from which the trustee will abstain based on conflict of interest, which will also be held for separate discussions. Trustee Sung.
I'd like to hold E3 for separate discussion, please. Oh, and also the district improvement plan, which is J2. And no conflicts of interest. Thank you.
Trustee Villaseca.
0 and 0.
Trustee Dygard.
None and none.
Trustee Adams. I'm sorry, no items? And I have none and no conflict of interest either. Yes. All right, first we will move forward with D1, which is an abstention. Do I have a motion for D1?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, please vote. Motion passes 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention. Next item being held for abstention is I1A. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions? There being none, please vote. Motion carries 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention. Now we will move on to E3, Trustee Sung. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Trustee Sung?
Yes, so for E3, right, so we're looking at targeted improvement plans. I'm not sure that what was uploaded into the portal is the full plan. So, and maybe nobody else had this problem, but so for instance, when I look at the Wheatley targeted improvement plan, there's on page 2, the priority focus areas were blank, right? The essential actions, the rationale, the desired annual outcomes, and barriers. Did anybody else see that? So there's just some things that look like they're missing on the Wheatley plan. And I know in the draft that was sent to us like 2 months ago, that those were there. But on the ones that were in the portal for our approval tonight, it looks like things are missing. For Wisdom High School, when I pull the item, it doesn't seem to have a front page, right? The header says it starts with cycle 2, so it seems like we're missing the front of the plan. We've got cycle 2 from December to February, but I can't see the start of the plan. So it just seems like it's not the full plan that's here for our review and approval.
Is it different than what we were given? Is it different than the book?
There's nothing in our book. Our book is empty.
No, we had a whole book of all the stuff.
Yeah, what we were given in the book was the district improvement plan and then the executive summaries for the schools within individual trustee districts. But the target improvement plans were never in those binders.
Yeah, these were not.
They're only available through the portal.
Yes.
Or the item says that they are. Yeah. So those are different than the target improvement plan. That was a different item. Yeah.
So stuff we were able to review online before agenda review is not here to sort of
No, so at agenda review, it was uploaded like that day, or maybe the day before agenda review, so I haven't looked at them yet. But now that I'm looking at them, and they've been there since agenda review, like that day, they were uploaded. It doesn't look like it's complete. I don't know if anybody else had that problem. I just feel like our targeted improvement plan, in particular for Wheatley, is really important this year. So I want to make sure I'm looking at it and I feel comfortable with it.
No, we're still here. There's still 5.
I'm looking in the portal for November 14th, which is today's meeting, which is when we're approving the targeted improvement plans. And so if I click on Wheatley, for instance.
So November 7th?
November 7th.
You want me to go to November 7th? Okay.
The agenda review tab.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me go back. November 7th, there's no items. That's normal, right? Like normally the backup is for the meeting where you're voting, so it's November 14th. Yeah, there's no. The November 7th portal just has the things that we voted on November 7th. It doesn't have the target improvement plans.
Okay, so if they haven't been fully reviewed, I just don't think it's...
Yeah, so then my follow-up question is, when is this due? When do we have to approve these by?
Yeah, because we're not going to sit here and review it right now. Do we know when they're due?
Yes, it's not me. We sent the hard draft, it didn't roll over, but we'll bring it up, but if it's been available for over a week, the board needs to review.
So when does it due? Where is it available for us? Because, I mean,
It was available last week when it was uploaded in the agenda review tab, and then so when...
No, but that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that, and it's not...
Once we roll it over to the meeting, everything moves over. For some reason, it looks like you said it didn't roll over. So we're going to bring the drive and
Okay.
upload it again.
Okay.
But we first gave our draft. We first provided drafts of the plan. Then we, last week, uploaded the revised final plans for review, so board members had a chance to review it prior to tonight. And evidently, last week, after agenda review, when things roll over to the new board meeting, the actual board meeting, for some reason, you're saying components of it did not carry over. And so we'll have to upload it again back to the portal.
Okay, and then when do these need to be?
We need to send these to TEA, pending board approval. They should be uploaded tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well then, colleagues, how do we want to handle that? Really, we only had access to these for about 24 hours last week, and I apologize, I had work and other commitments. I wasn't able to catch it. I really wanted to, but I had. So is this something we can approve next week after we've actually been able to look at them?
Did you submit when it's time to submit questions that you hadn't seen?
I did. In fact, it's in the Q&A. Correct. In the Q&A, it says, when are these going to be uploaded to the portal? There's a response to that. You're right, they were, but that's, they were uploaded the day before agenda review. I'm not interested in casting blame. I just want to know how do we look at them and approve them? How do we move forward here, folks?
So we can upload them, so you can have them again. We can upload them, and so then you can review them tonight.
Okay, great.
Like I said, we just assume people had to review them prior to coming tonight.
So when are they due? I think we get a clarification on the due date.
We should be uploading them tomorrow.
So they're due tomorrow.
I have to wait till Ms. Trini comes back for the right day, but normally the next day after the board agenda, but they're due by the November meeting.
I just want to make sure. It looks like there's pieces missing. For the weekly plan, there's a whole section that's blank, right? So I just want to make sure whatever we're approving and submitting is complete. Even just from what I can see, right? So. But I also know that if we postpone this item to next week, we run the risk of missing a window to submit. So I guess I'm looking to our superintendent and board president for how do we handle this?
Well, once we find out the due date, Trustee Song, I'm okay with postponing the vote. But if it's due tomorrow, then I hate to take a blank vote on it. So it's because we're trying to.
It's due November 22nd.
So next Friday. We do have a hearing scheduled for the 21st. If you'd like to postpone it to then.
So how many of my colleagues can be here for hearings next Thursday? That's a little scary. Yeah.
Yep. I have a question, if I may.
Yes, Trustee.
I'm asking for this particular item, if we can just move forward on this and trust the leadership that it will be uploaded on tomorrow to not delay any more time to call another meeting. One of the monitoring reports that was based on the coach is that however many meetings that we're scheduling and how many meetings we're having and meeting after meeting just for this particular item. So it was there before. The superintendent said it did not roll over a transfer. The superintendent said it did not roll over and transfer. She's saying she's going to upload it tonight for tomorrow for review. So my question is, where is the non-trust of the superintendent not trusting her that she's going to roll it over, that we have to wait a whole another week to come to another meeting to vote just to see an uploaded item?
So for clarification purposes, it's a hearing date. It's scheduled, so it's not an additional meeting. It's just an opportunity to delay, and it's not a lack of trust. It's a colleague wanting to read through some of these important plans, especially one that's Wheatley High School that we know is in the situation that it's in. And I respect the fact that she wants to do her due diligence because I know I did it, and I'm going to admit it. So I respect the fact that she wants an additional week to review it. I commit to being here, like I have been for most hearings, I think all hearings. If I wasn't here last week, it's because my husband was in an accident and I had to go pick him up. But other than that, I think I almost have a 100% attendance to meetings, agenda review, hearings, and board meetings. So I'm good with waiting till next week because I know I'm going to be here.
We actually have it. We can upload it and you can look at it on the screen now since you all didn't, so you can review it now if you would like.
So Trustee Song, I will.
That would be great. At least if we could look at Wheatley's, I'd like to see that before we vote on it.
May I ask, what would be the actual motion to postpone this until the end of the agenda to come back to give her time to review it so we don't hold up the process?
I was just about to ask.
So I would like to make a motion that we hold item E3, is that E3? Table it until the end, till later in the meeting, give Trustee Song an opportunity to review it and any other colleague. So that's my motion. So we don't hold up the board meeting.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Otherwise, we need to vote on that item.
And this only just to table it until she gets the opportunity to review. In the meeting? Yes, that's all we're doing.
All right, can we just vote with the show of hands because this is taking longer to pull up. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is J2. J2, Trustee Sung.
So I noticed this in our...
Madam President?
Yes, sir.
You need a motion.
Okay. I'm sorry. Do I have a motion for J2?
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Trustee Sung.
Yes, thank you. So my question here is with regards to... we're saying that this district improvement plan is our plan for achieving our goals and constraints. And on page 19 of the Loans for Governance Manual, it says that the board is provided copies of that plan and ensures that the plan includes both an implementation timeline and measures. So my question, I just want to double check, right, that this plan includes an implementation timeline and measures. So the question is, does the district improvement plan include an implementation timeline and measures?
Take a look, and every board member did receive a binder of the district improvement plan. It has a time, if you go to just any page, I'm on page 17, it has the measurable performance objectives, it has the strategy, the timeline, the resources, the title of the person responsible, actually the position, the formative evaluation, the checkpoints will eventually be filled in, the progress, and the next steps.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your work on this massive plan. Thank you.
No further discussion. Please vote on J2. Motion carries 6-4, 0 against, 0 abstention. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the hearing of the community so that we could give our trustee an opportunity to review the E3 items. And I think Trustee Villaseca, are they going to be uploaded, Dr. Lathan?
Yes, it'll get uploaded, and that way we can view it on the screen, but if you want us to go print copies, we can print copies.
No, I think if the upload shouldn't take that long, should it? Okay, all right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the hearing of citizens. We have 18 registered speakers, so, and then we'll go back to approve the consent agenda, executive session, closed session items, and the pending agenda item E3. We have now come to the portion of our meeting of the hearing of the community. We are glad you are here and look forward to hearing your views. Only those registered by 9:30 a.m. today may speak this evening. Copies of handout materials must have been provided to the board services by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 18 speakers registered this evening. The total time allotment for hearing of the committee shall not exceed 30 minutes. Speakers during the hearing of the committee shall be limited to 1 minute each. I'd like to remind speakers that when addressing the board, please stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. However, naming your own child is permissible in the course of stating your concern. Please understand that this is a public forum, does not allow for dialogue with board members. The board cannot deliberate or respond directly to a speaker in this format. So that each person who has signed up to speak can be heard by the board, we ask that there be no disruptions of the meeting by members of the audience, no abusive statements or actions, no threats or confrontations, audible expressions by the audience, approval or disapproval. Should a speaker drift from the stated subject or become disruptive or abusive, the speaker shall be given 1 warning. If a second warning is required, then the speaker shall forfeit the remaining time allotment for a current meeting. Any allotment for any meeting within the next 30 days and may be removed from the meeting. We ask that you please speak directly into the microphone. The clock on the wall to your right and on the podium will count down your time and will signal when your time is up. I ask that you please respect our procedures and that of others, and end your remarks promptly when your time is expired. Are there any? We're going to start with our first speaker that has registered to speak, Claire Castellano, followed by Lorenza Butler, followed by Ashley Fitzpatrick, followed by Dylan Stewart. And if you, as I call your name, if you could please come forward. There's some seats in the very front that have reserved for speakers. So it's Claire, Lorenza, Ashley, Dylan, then Savannah, Christopher. There's some chairs up here. And as you come up, please start with your name and then.
Hi, my name is Claire Castellano, and I'm a freshman at Rice University. Today I'm here to share thoughts about EHBAB1, a policy of HISD regarding special education. EHBAB1 says that HISD is not permitted to allocate district funds to hire outside private providers like speech therapists. Revising this policy could help close the gap of full staff hires by using contract hires. Last year, there was a 700 special ed student increase, but a drop in special ed hires. When students requiring special education do not receive it, there are negative effects in literacy, mental health, and employability. Due to understaffing, not all students were helped during the last school year and were offered compensatory services to some. From parents I've spoken to, there were often 3 days in the summer to make up for months of zero treatment. Because these services were no longer consistent in duration, intensity, or with their IEP, the student's growth was compromised. So I'm asking for a revision of EHBAB1 that would allow.
Thank you. Lorenza Butler, followed by Ashley.
Good evening. I'm Lorenza Butler. I was a teacher for 30 years in HISD and also a police officer. But what I like, the board that we had in 1980, this happened started in 1980. We had a segregation board. What they did, the test that these information that was sent down to the school, what they did, Latin American kids was going to the white school. So they said, no, we're going to send this we'll send all this information to the black schools because we don't think these Latin American kids will be able to pass all this stuff. So what I'm asking you all today, the company that made those tests and sending them down to our schools now, what's the name of that school and what state it's coming from?
We don't do dialogue engagement, I'm sorry.
In 1980, we got it, Lamar Fleming got it, a load of information from that college. Those questions was, the teacher was was really upset because how we gonna explain this to these kids? You got to remember, our state board of Texas put all the subjects that the kids need from first grade to the 12th grade in order to finish school. So these questions that these people sent, because when I was in school, every school in Texas taught Texas history. None of these questions that these people had on that stuff they sent down from all Fleming that day, they have any information concerning history of Texas. For instance, I never forget, the first oil well in the state of Texas was where, do you know? First oil well drilled in the state of Texas.
No. And I'm going to, your time is up. But
also, and that's where our capital states were. The first capital city were not in Austin before they moved to Austin. What I'm asking you all, are the schools still getting this information from that college?
I'm not sure where the state, it's a state prepared test.
All the color schools are not getting up that test up from that college? Wherever the answer is.
So I can't be engaging in the dialogue. We're not supposed to be a question and answer. So if you could submit the question to me and then I can refer it. It's not that we don't want to, it's that we can't. Thank you. Ashley Fitzpatrick, followed by Dylan Stewart and Savannah Parrott.
Hi, so I'm a student at Rice University. I'm here with my three colleagues also from Rice University, and we're here to just address a problem we have in Houston. In our research, we found that Houston has one of the highest STI rates and teen pregnancy rates in the nation. In Harris County, a child is born of a teen mom every 2 hours, and according to the CDC, we have a teen pregnancy rate that is 8.8% higher than the national average. Texas Medical Center found that in the last 10 years, there's been an increase of 9,000 STI cases annually, and out of the 254 counties in Texas, we have the highest number of syphilis, chlamydia, and gonorrhea cases out of all the counties. We realize that students are not having a safe place to learn about sex, and they're not getting enough education on it. HISD doesn't have standardized sex education, so we don't really know what kids are learning. And after talking to multiple HISD parents, we know that they don't know what their children are learning either. So thank you.
Please start with your name first.
Okay, my name is Dylan Stewart. So I was a captain of my cheer team my senior year of high school, and I ended up the girls on the cheer team ended up being, I saw them as my sisters by the end of the year, and they sort of saw me as an older sister. Something that I noticed, though, is that their parents weren't very involved with the social lives of the girls, and it was much more they dropped them off at school and then they left. About a month into the school year, I had 3 separate girls within a week come up to me and tell me that they had had sex for the first time, and all 3 of them had had unprotected sex, and they hadn't understood the implications of having unprotected sex, and that they could be at risk of teen pregnancy and of having any sort of STDs or STIs. About 6 weeks later, I ended up having to take all 3 of them to Target to get a pregnancy test. And when I tell you that as a 17-year-old who was also not educated by her school, that was a very anxious 3 minutes where you had to just wait and see if those girls' future was going to be put on hold based on if they were pregnant or not. This is due to lack of parent involvement as well as a lack of education for the girls.
Savannah, followed by Christopher, followed by Leah.
Hi, I'm Savannah. Clearly, based on what the last 2 speakers have said, there's a problem in Houston and a problem in HISD. We believe that the HISD school board can play a role in this solution through education. HISD has the power to set an example for Texas and for the greater Houston area by advocating for the safety, health, and wellness of the students through the implementation of a parent education program in sex and reproductive health. A program like this would give parents the resources to start sexual and reproductive health conversations with their students, as parents are role models for their students and play an integral role in their students' education. We want to give them the resources to do just that. The parents want this, and students would greatly benefit. We have with us here today Houston organization Be Busy, and they're here with us to show support for this effort, and they're here willing and able to provide this educational seminar for HISD parents at no cost to the district.
Thank you. Christopher Rivera, followed by Leah Martin.
Following the information that my team has just presented, I ask that you strongly consider our proposal to create a sex education seminar designed specifically for parents to connect with and educate their children in certain areas of sex ed that the wider aides of school and HISD may not have been able to cover. This seminar would be similar to those already in place for topics such as college prep. It would be an open invitation to all parents of HISD students of all ages, and this would basically allow them to not only learn about comprehensive sex education, but also gain insight on how to discuss such topics with their child when they feel it is appropriate. We envision the outcome for our seminar would not only reduce the ever-growing rates of STIs in Houston, but it would also reduce the number of teen pregnancies in HISD students. We also want this seminar to serve to create a better relationship between parents and their children and the ability to discuss sex. What we've deemed is an important goal, a vision that we share between you and I, is that it is of utmost importance that we protect. And we believe that this would be a great step forward in ensuring that we accomplish that goal.
Thank you. Leah Martin, followed by Komal Bharani, followed by Gordon Liu and Caroline Birch.
Hi, I'm a student at Rice University, and today I'm here with a few of your constituents to talk about the problem of sexual violence in HISD schools. 1 in 5 women will be sexually assaulted. 1 in 6 women report being first attacked between the ages of 11 and 17. Women aged 16 to 19 experience sexual assaults at a higher rate than any other age group. Sexual assault is a matter of HISD student health and safety. Victims of sexual assault are 4 times more likely to experience substance abuse and PTSD. They are 3 times more likely to have a major depressive episode. As a Rice student, we have benefited from a required 5-week course that discusses important concepts like consent. Having this sexual violence prevention education in college is great, but considering the statistics I listed, this program for many came too late. I'm here with several other students to propose a solution to sexual violence in HISD, which they will talk more about in a second. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Komal, and I'm a freshman at Rice University, and I will be carrying on from what my friend said, and I will be presenting our first ask. Our first ask to you is to support the idea of a pilot program on comprehensive consent-based education to be introduced in any one of the HISD high schools. As an example, the Houston Area Women's Center already has formed programming on comprehensive sexual violence prevention education intended for 9th graders. We talked to a few HISD graduates, and all of them reported that they did not receive any form of consent-based education while they were in high school, and many expressed that they could have benefited from such a program. Therefore, comprehensive consent-based education is important since it provides a standard on how every student should view consent within schools and beyond. We understand that it is not under the HISD's jurisdiction to introduce a program as such. Therefore, our ask involves your communication with HISD high school principals to inform them of the resources offered by the Houston Area Women's Center. Thank you.
The language we use to talk about sexual violence matters. As we consider the necessity of consent education for high school students, it is imperative that we also discuss the language that must accompany this potential transformation of how we understand and prevent sexual violence in HISD. Our second ask is simple. We would like to see a more comprehensive definition of sexual violence in the HISD Code of Conduct. According to page 23 of this year's Code of Conduct, HISD schools only recognize violence within student relationships as prohibited harassment if the behavior is so severe that it disables the survivor from engaging in their academics. This current definition creates a threshold for a survivor's suffering and implies that misconduct is only wrong if the victim is so traumatized that they can no longer properly function in schools. Under your leadership, the language surrounding sexual violence must be revised so that can acknowledge the experience of the students and support their safety well-being.
Thank you. Caroline Burge, followed by Mallory, followed by Wesley.
Hi, I'm a junior at Rice University and one of your constituents. I want to talk to you about 3 reasons that you should implement a new definition in your Code of Conduct and also support a pilot program for consent education. First, from your website, the board's mission is to equitably educate the whole child so that every student graduates with the tools to reach their full potential. Trauma caused by sexual violence can prevent survivors from being able to reach their full potential. Survivors of sexual violence may experience negative physical and mental health effects for an extended period of time that can keep them from engaging in their educational activities. This means that without active efforts to prevent sexual violence, the board is not doing everything it can to ensure education equality. Furthermore, your stated goal is to educate the whole child. Interpersonal relationships are essential to a student's success in life, and a consent education program is designed to give students the tools to maintain and promote healthy relationships. In order to fulfill your mission, it is important to foster these relationship skills and not just academic skills. Lastly, efforts to address sexual violence via comprehensive definitions and consent education already exist in the state of Texas. During the most recent legislative session, the state
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mallory and I'm a sophomore at Rice University. Sexual violence in relation to high schools has impacted me on a personal level. When I was only 15 years old and a sophomore in high school, I was assaulted by an adult man that I trusted. This event caused me to experience many social problems with my peers, and the resulting mental health issues were detrimental to my academic performance. My circumstances continue to heavily affect my relationship with others and my perception of my safety. It is undeniable that a comprehensive preventative sexual violence education in 9th grade would have helped me to understand what happened to me and how to respond. It would have given me the tools to identify power imbalances and warning signs that could have prevented the situation and its lasting trauma. I have committed myself to educating others about sexual assault and harassment by telling my story and advocating for survivors. I have committed myself to pursuing the safety of all students, not just those like myself that are privileged enough to have support. For many of us, this education in college comes too late. I hope that you, the HISD Board of Trustees, can act as a trailblazer for these preventative measures, as I wish that my high school's district had prioritized such an initiative.
Then your school's children will be safer.
Thank you. Wesley Davis? No. Savannah Stowers? No. Earl Fitzsimmons? I think he's gone. Shanette Kinchin? Juanita Martinez? Followed by Hilda, Elorza, and William. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Juanita Martinez. I would like to thank you all for the pleasure of speaking tonight. I also want to thank you for honoring me with 22 years of service, but when it comes down to it, I am very disappointed. I've been here for 22 years, and right now someone can walk through the doors and get a job with HISD Food Service making $14 an hour. I only make $14.57. I've been working 22 years. I am a team lead. I do a lot of work, these children in our schools, to make sure they're fed in good, wholesome, healthy food, and for receive a thank you from which I appreciate, but all the same time, somebody walks in new employee walks into my school, has never worked in school cafeterias. They're making $14 an hour, making $57 more than an hour for.
Thank you. Hilda Elorza.
Hi, my name is Hilda Elorza, and I am here because all the abuse that was happened to my daughter, Charette, while attended to the Anderson Elementary. She is in the 2nd grade, turning 8 years old Monday. I am trying to work with the administration to get solution, but still I have some issues in resolve it, and I'm hoping that somebody help me to solve this issue that's going on with my daughter. That's unfair, and I don't want that ever happen to any other parent and any other kid. And I heard another stuff that's going on in the same school. They'll be happening with ours. And to me be here is very hard because I don't speak the language.
I'm sorry, what school is this again?
Anderson Elementary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, esteemed trustees. My name is Bill Kraszewski from Fall River, California. I flew here yesterday to act as power of attorney on behalf of Hilda. That's the importance of the seriousness of why we're here. I'm a little upset, only allowed 1 minute. When I came all the way from California to say, oh, you're only good for 1 minute. So let me just cut to the chase. There's abuse going on at Anderson Elementary. I believe it's endemic with the way the staff is staffed to have a single population of racist ethnicity in supervision of another ethnicity, which is 75% of the population of that school. It may be a top-down type scenario that's happening, but the bottom line is that this beautiful young lady who's a very high achiever, she's been in the process of trying to be promoted to the next grade, is a very special young lady who has been physically abused, where she was out for 2 weeks of class.
More detail that I think you as responsible parents and administrators, you must address. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have now concluded our hearing of citizens. We are going to go back to the agenda items. And we're going to start with agenda item E3, I'm sorry. Trustee Sung?
Yes.
Go back.
Thank you. Okay, so
Do I have a motion? Moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any questions?
Yes. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm looking at the updated one. So if I pull it down now from the portal, right, the Wheatley Target Improvement Plan.
Can I let staff kind of respond first, and then Trustee Song, if you don't mind, so we can kind of give you an overview?
Great.
I think what you were seeing is different, and there's some information, so we can provide you an overview first, and then if you don't mind,
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Ms. Tran.
So one of the things that you had asked, Trustee Sung, or a couple of the things that you had asked when you first saw the first plans, which are not that different than the updated plans, we went back, every school cleaned it up, made edits, added additional information, double-checked for spelling. We tightened up our theory of action. and aligned it to the way that TA was expecting the format to be. And that's something I think that you had caught as well, alignment of the theory of action on our commitment of what we were doing as a district to support the plans. You had also flagged for us, and we addressed in all of the plans, making sure that the schools identified the barriers very concretely, and to make sure that whatever the barriers were not the same thing as a strategy. So we went back for those schools that had the same thing, identified the barriers, and then what were going to be the strategies for that. You had asked also about Cycle 4, why it wasn't completed in any of the plans. Cycle 4 is not required until the end, because that comes in the summertime. We went back and changed everything. All the acronyms were spelled out, just to make it in case anybody picks it up, they will be able to understand and see what's in the plan. So a lot of the revisions that were made were more edits, and just to make it a little bit cleaner. So what you saw at the beginning is very similar to what you're seeing now you had asked about Wheatley in particular and why they had not completed a certain section. There's a number of our schools that started this process last year. And so under the foundations plan, if we can scroll on that page down, I don't know if that's doable, but the part that you were asking about, if a school has already completed an ESF diagnostic, which is a very intensive process that goes along with an ESF, Effective School Framework Facilitator, if they did that part, they do not complete that section that you're seeing blank. Okay. It's actually stated on the template. It says the self-assessment results with the essential actions. It says to be completed if the campus has not had an ESF diagnostic. Okay, great. Wheatley actually did that diagnostic last spring. Mm-hmm. Now, you will see priorities and additional information when you go to Cycle 1.
Okay. Yeah, that I don't think we have access to. So we didn't get the Excel files, so we can't click on the cycles. So I think what's happened is in the PDFs that are available for us to put down, it's kind of random. For some schools, we got the foundation. For some schools, we got like Cycle 3. So we got kind of like one of them, so not all of them.
My apologies for that. That's a technology issue that we'll have to address. So. What I have on my I have all of the final products on a flash drive, and they have all the tabs. So I'm not sure if it's not transferring or what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. On the email from 2 months ago, there's an Excel file. Those were Excel files. I could see everything. And that just now that we're looking at the final, right, it's a different piece that we can see for each one. So thank you. My concerns have been addressed very thoroughly. So thank you. I want to make sure that we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's with regards to these plans. And if you could just, whether it's email or portal, give us the Excel so we can see the full one, I would appreciate that. Thank you. But my questions are addressed.
Brian Kincaid sent you an instructional email on how to view the document, so that it was a step-by-step on how to maneuver the file so that you could see all of the areas. So that was a part of an email that Brian Kincaid sent from the board's office.
Okay.
Regarding the plans.
Okay. Yeah.
There being no further questions, any other questions from my colleagues? Otherwise, we can vote on this item. Trustee Dygart.
I'd like to make a request that in January, because we're going to have 4 new board members, I was never onboarded about how this worked. I figured it out on my own. It took time. It was cumbersome. And having a training about what information is where, so on and so forth, I think would be beneficial not only to returning board members, but new board members as well, just so, your staff is spending a whole lot of time putting all of this in there so that we're using it to the maximum benefit to be efficient in our meetings. Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Doesn't have to be long. Yeah, if I could just note, I'm seeing Brian's instructions, right? And I did follow those instructions, and I downloaded them, and they were PDFs, not Excel. So just, again, a technology issue that we could figure out going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions or comments? Please vote on this item E3. Motion carries 6-4, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Okay, we are now ready to consider the balance of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the balance of today's agenda by consensus?
So moved.
Any comments or questions from my colleagues? If not, please vote. I think we voted, but we can't see it on the screen. There we go. Motion carries 6-4, against, 0 abstentions. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of October 10, 2019, special meeting of October 15, 2019, the hearing of October 17, 2019, and agenda review meeting held on November 7, 2019. Do I have a motion? Is there a second? Yes. I was going to say because it wasn't an actual meeting. Official. Okay. All right. So let me revise that. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of October 10, 2019, special meeting of October 15, 2019, and the hearing of October 17, 2019? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussions? There being none, please vote. Motion carries 5-4, 1 abstention. Now we are ready to consider items discussed in executive sessions. Do I have a motion? Any motions? Yes. Trustee Villaseca.
Okay. C2E, I move that the board authorize the district to settle Frida Barnes versus HISD in the 164th Judicial District Court, Harris County, Texas, cause number 2017-40494 on the terms discussed in closed session, effective November 15th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions? If not, please vote. Motion carries 4-4, 1 abstention.
I move that the board, this is item C2F, I move that
wait, I'm sorry. Villaseca, you didn't,
sorry.
It's not registering.
I keep hitting yes.
Here we go, let's try it again.
Yep.
There we go.
And Trustee Adams abstained.
Yeah. 5-4, against, 1 abstention. Thank you, Trustee Sung.
Mm-hmm.
You may proceed.
C2F, I move that the board authorize the district to settle Bettina Littell as parent and next friend of IL minor at Al v. HISD, Houston Independent School District in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Texas, Houston Division, Civil Action Number 414-CV-003369 on the terms discussed in closed session, effective November 15th, 2019.
Is there a second? Please vote. Motion carries 5-4, against, 1 abstention.
C2H, I move that the board authorize the district to settle the subrogation lien of Gloria Peavy against Gary Newman and EMC Insurance for workers' compensation benefits, EMC Insurance claim number 0148303 on the terms discussed in closed session, effective November 15, 2019. Second.
Please vote. Motion carries 5-4, against, 1 abstention.
C2I, I move that the board authorize the district to settle the subrogation lien of Darrell Bell against Cassie Oliver and State Farm Insurance for workers' compensation benefits, State Farm Insurance claim number 531-697J46 on the terms discussed in closed session, effective November 15, 2019.
Second. Please vote. Motion carries 5-4, against, 1 abstention.
Item C2J, I move that the board authorize the district to attend mediation in the lawsuit of Rita Lane Moreno against Natasha Nicole Hebert for workers' compensation benefits on the terms discussed in closed session, effective November 15, 2019.
Is there a second? Second.
Item C.
Okay. Motion carries 5-4, against, 1 abstention. Go ahead.
Item C2K, I move that the board authorize the district's attorneys to settle the subrogation lien of LaWanda Williams against Fish Gallery for workers' compensation benefits on the terms discussed in closed session effective November 15, 2019.
Is there a second? Please vote. 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention.
Item C2L, I move that the board authorize the district's attorneys to settle the subrogation lien of Marisha Butcher against Franklin City and Geico Insurance for workers' compensation benefits. Geico Insurance claim number 042-761-445-010-1046 on the terms discussed in closed session effective November 15, 2019.
Please vote. Motion carries 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention.
Item C2M, I move that the board authorize the district's attorneys to settle the subrogation lien of Stanley Simmons against Catherine Ann Schwartz and Allstate Insurance for workers' compensation benefits. Allstate Insurance claim number 053-234-8810 on the terms discussed in closed session effective November 15, 2019.
Please vote. 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention.
Item C2N, I move that the board authorize the district's attorneys to settle the subrogation lien of Geneva Davis against Daryl Leon and Century Insurance for workers' compensation benefits. Century Insurance claim number 61A187599 on the terms discussed in closed session effective November 15, 2019.
Please vote. 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention.
Okay. On to personnel. I move that the board approve the 2018-2019 evaluation of the interim superintendent as discussed in closed session effective November 15, 2019.
Please vote. Six, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
I move that the board approve the 2018-2019 evaluation of the chief audit executive as discussed in closed session effective November 15, 2019.
Please vote.
I have a question.
What's the last board meeting? It was last month.
It was last month.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion carries 6-4. 6-4, 0 against, and 0 abstentions.
Okay. I move that the board approve a I move that the board approve a finding of no good cause for educators to resign or abandon employment contracts without district consent under sections 21.105C, 21.160C, or 21.210C of the Texas Education Code as discussed in closed session, and authorize the interim superintendent or her designee to submit a written complaint to SBAC to impose sanctions effective November 15, 2019.
Second. Please vote. Motion carries. There we go. Motion carries 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention.
Last one, everyone. I move that the board approve the balance of the closed session personnel agenda, including specifically that the board approve proposed terminations of continuing term and probationary contracts, that the board approve proposed non-renewals of term contracts, that the board approve issuance of fourth-year probationary contracts, and authorize the interim superintendent or her designee to provide notice of same, that the board approve separation and release agreements, that the board approve withdrawals of contract recommendations, and any reissuance of same, and that the board approve issuance of final orders on contract terminations and non-renewals as discussed in closed session effective November 15, 2019.
Please vote.
That's it.
Motion carries 5-4, 0 against, 1 abstention. Thank you, Trustee Villacek. We are now ready to hear reports and comments from board members, starting with Ms. Skiller Jones.
I just want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving holiday. Be safe, enjoy, and we'll see you back here next month.
Trustee Sung.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And also, just want to remind my colleagues, check your emails from our coaches. I just want to make sure that everybody is in communication with them. They're making themselves available for one-on-ones with each of us to debrief meetings like this for individual coaching, so you can contact them to set up times. Also, you're getting an email from the coaches every Monday, which has the 3-week outlook, right? What's happening over the next 3 weeks, what are action items, etc. So everybody knows, everybody has the same information, everybody knows what's going on. One thing I want to flag for you is that some of the additional community meetings that we just talked about, right, earlier today, are actually on that plan too. So there are some that have been added to that calendar, and you can see them in that plan. So I wanted to make sure people were aware of that. And I think that what we need to do is let our coaches know if we plan to attend those, because if there's interest from more than one trustee to go, then I think we need to make sure that we're communicating with Dr. Lathan and board services to make sure we're following protocol for letting everybody know and posting, et cetera. Just want to flag those things. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody's work today.
Trustee Villaseka.
Just want to wish everybody a happy, safe Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for being engaged, not only tonight, but throughout the school year. And I appreciate all of my colleagues' support and Dr. Lathan's support with the staff and hard work in getting those the district improvement plan and the targeted improvement plans ready to go, and all of the research and accountability reports that go through to goal progress monitoring and goals and constraints and everything that we talk about every month. So thank you, everybody. I hope that you have a safe Thanksgiving.
Trustee Dygard.
I'm disappointed the Rice students all left. I had no idea that they were going to be here, but I really appreciated their well-researched. They didn't just come in here with, we want this. It was, here's why, here's how it impacts our students, and as a breath of fresh air with proposed solutions. I'm not going to evaluate whether or not they're right or wrong solutions, but I appreciate that they shared those, and I hope that the administration will take their thoughts and ideas under consideration. And on a very personal note, I want to thank those of you who reached out to me over the past few weeks when my father passed away, very unexpectedly, and just, he informed, his values of education inform so much of what I do, and his values of equality. I have a statue that he had in his nursing home room of Abraham Lincoln that was his idol, and I hope that I can carry forth those values that were instilled in me. Thank you.
Trustee Adams.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of things that I just want to do just to share. First of all, I just want to say to all the principals, I hope that you had an amazing Principal Appreciation Month in the month of October, especially the District 9 principals. Had the opportunity to host all my principals for a brunch, and it was a very, very great gathering, a lot of fun with them. So thank you, Dr. Lathan, and of course, thank you, Nicole Moore, and of course to the dynamic team of board services for helping me put that together for our principals. So it was a great gathering. I want to say congratulations to Milne. They will be doing their Spark Park dedication on this coming Monday, November the 18th. So those of you who live in that Fundering South Gessner area, if you're not doing anything on Monday, please go to that Spark Park dedication. Also, I want to congratulate the Wraparound Services team at Westbury High School. Thank you, Dr. Lathan, and all of the staff, Ms. Monahan, Craig Zeno, and all the staff are doing an amazing job. They opened the first transformational center, wraparound center, first in the country. We had a great ribbon cutting and dedication at Westbury High High School, and we had a great time a week or so ago. So I just want to say congratulations to all the staff. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving break. And to all the teachers, thank you for the marvelous work that you've done thus far. And I know Dr. Lathan is just a leader, but I know she cannot do all this work by herself. I want to thank you all so much for jumping aboard and making sure that the team continue to move forward. And also, I just want to wish every person in HISD that's a veteran, I want to thank you so much for your dedication and your service to our country, even those that are still serving in our armed forces that are part-time or in reserve. Again, we just want to thank you all so much. Mr. Cruz, thank you so much for all that you do with CTE, Career, Emerge, the money that you raise. Thank you so much for those Spike and those minority students having the opportunity to attend Tier 1 colleges and universities. And I know, again, you can't do it by yourself, but a great team always have a great leader. So I just want to thank you so much for what you have done. And again, Dr. Lathan, thank you so much for the presentations and today. And Ms. Carla, oh, she gone. That concludes. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I just want to thank the citizens who came out and voted on November 5th and who elected 2 new trustees, Judith Cruz and Daniela Hernandez, who will be serving as your trustees starting in January of 2020. And with that, I also want to publicly say that I am still against, as I was before, a TEA Board of Management appointment. I have been very vocal about it. I believe in democracy. I believe in it even more after just getting off a campaign trail. And I believe that those people that are new elected trustees should have the opportunity to voice their concerns from their community because they were elected to do that. The citizens have spoken, and I respect democracy no matter the outcome. And everyone in the city of Houston should be outraged because it starts with us, the largest school district in the state of Texas, and then all the other ones will follow. It starts with us. I mean, those of you who have not seen that article about the governor having the authority to be able to appoint our judges now, when will it end? If we don't take a stand against this, then we lose our voices. We have heard citizens talk about the fight to have the right to vote as minorities, whether you're black, brown, a woman, and those of us who came to this country, and I had to take a test just to be able to qualify, to be a citizen, to be able to have the right to vote, an additional hurdle that should not be taken away from the citizens of Houston. And whether I'm at the podium or on the sidelines, I will continue to advocate for any trustee that remains here, whether you want it or not, because I know not everybody is in agreement with my opinion. I'm going to advocate for the citizens of Houston, and I ask every citizen of Houston to continue on with this fight and ask TEA not to appoint a board of managers, ask our elected officials, our state and federal and local, to stand behind us, because if they're going out asking for our vote, then they need to stand for democracy and respect all the other people that came out to vote. So with that, I would like to conclude this meeting, unless Dr. Lathan has something to add to our meeting tonight. No, she does not. With that, I conclude this meeting. Oh, we have a final, before I conclude, there's going to be a TA meeting at Cesar Chavez at 6:30 next Thursday. I invite the citizens of Houston to go out and attend. They have a series of meetings that are being held across the city, but I think Cesar Chavez is very significant to many of us, and I ask those who can attend to attend. Thank you, and with that we conclude. It is 9:06 p.m.